Favor? Opposed? Motion carries. So this is a legislative public hearing for a rezoning and OCP amendment. But as part of a public hearing, I have to read out this. It's a very legislative process, so I want to make sure everyone's clear in terms of what the protocol is. So bear with me while I read this. This public hearing is convened pursuant to Part 14, Division 3 of the Local Government Act, to allow the public to make representations to Council respecting Order 2305, 2013, and District of Squamish Zoning Bylaw 2200-2011, Amendment Bylaw Chikai River Development number 2306, 2013. Everyone present shall be given a reasonable opportunity to be heard or present written submissions respecting matters contained in the proposed bylaw. No one will be discouraged or prevented from making their views known. However, it is important that remarks be restricted to matters contained in the proposed bylaw. Merits of the proposed bylaw. In considering the proposed bylaw, Council has received documents which may influence its decision. These documents are available for review and comment and have been included as part of the Planning Department report, or if received later, handed out at the meeting and included in the public hearing package. If any documents are submitted during the hearing, please feel free to review the document during the hearing by asking staff.
Which is a mixed density development, including a park dedication, a fairly sizable park dedication, and a neighborhood commercial aspect. So the site is approximately 18 hectares. It is located at the northern end of the Brackendale community and adjacent to area schools. The site is bounded by Government Road, Ross Road, and BC Highway Corridor. The site is also sewer and water, and is also a BC Transit service area. This is an overview of the existing conditions on site. So you see at the northern end, there's an existing woodlot area highlighted in brown. The blue color represents areas that are currently developed, and that's mainly the schools located in the area, as well as residential development along Ross yellow area represents a previous development attempt. It was a subdivision proposal a few decades ago, spearheaded by the province that hasn't ended up feasible. Just a quick history of the application. So the application, the district received the application in 2015. The first appearance in front of committee of the whole council committee happened in that's approach. And finally, in November of 2016, the zoning amendment received second reading and the public hearing was scheduled. So there's two bylaws here. One is the official community plan amendment, and the official community plan designates parts of this area as residential neighborhoods, parts of it as civic and institutional, and parts of it as greenways and greenway corridors. The designations are being changed. So in the blue area up above, area to the staff area A, the proposal would redesignate that little triangle from civic and institutional to residential neighborhoods. The pink purplish area tagged with B, and it's highlighted in yellow, would be redesignated from restricted industrial to residential neighborhoods. We made corridor designation to residential neighborhoods, and then a small triangle sliver at the southern end tagged as C, as well as the linear corridor above the park would be designated to the greenway corridors and recreation. And so the designation for greenway corridors and recreation represents a potential dedication of the Brackendale Farmers Institute Park. The approximately 50 hectares strata parks and trails would be approximately 5 hectares. The Wayfair's Trail would be dedicated to the district and would be almost 4 hectares in size. The Brackendale's Farmers Institute Park represents 20 hectares. And there's also part of this rezoning is rezoning for the potential of the cemetery expansion, which represents 3.4 hectares. The northern sections are zoned resource, and the church on the corner of Ross Road as well as the two schools are zoned for public use. The proposed rezoning is contained within the new zone, which is comprehensive development zone number 82. So this zone will apply to the proposed residential areas as well as the mixed commercial. A public zone, which is an existing zone, as well as the Brackendale Institute, Farmers Institute Computer Zone to a public park zone. This map here shows the allocation of dwelling units and type of development that is being proposed. So in parcel A, you can see those are single detached, small and medium-sized lots. There's approximately 300. Lots in there. Parcel C is multifamily development, approximately 284 units. Parcel D would be single detached, small and medium-sized lots, as well as allowance for a tiny home cluster. So all in all, parcel D would be approximately 80 lots or units. Parcel E is where the neighborhood commercial center would be located, as well as some multifamily. And then so overall, there are 1,215 units that's built up. The development is projected to take approximately 20 years to build. Full potential. This is what it looks like in terms of the general development plan. So as you can see, along Ross Road, we have in yellow are the single-family residential lots, as well as future roads running through it, as well as strata roads. So all of the roads inside of the development would be strata roads maintained by the strata. Would have public access. There are a number of laneways included to facilitate secondary speech development, as well as a comprehensive network of trails, all of which would be available to the public for access, as well as This is just a view of the parks, the strata trails, and the public trails. And the Repeaters Trail runs along Government Road and then parallels Ross Road, and then it runs off to the BC Highway right away in two locations. This represents the width of the trail by the Strata Park right-of-ways range between 10 and 8 meters, which exceeds district standards for collector trails as well as neighborhood trails. Some of the sustainability features of this project: the project will include a transit hub, a neighborhood center, electric vehicle charging stations. The project will have to exceed the building standards. In the strata development. A new sidewalk on south and west side of Ross Road, so the sidewalk will continue the full length of Ross Road and connect from Government to Beaver Road. There will be sidewalks included on major north, south, and east, west strata roads. Normally, we don't see sidewalks on strata roads, but the developer has agreed to provide those in addition to the trail network that will act. Park will be transferred from the Crown to the district. The Repeaters Trail will also be dedicated to the district as a linear park. And as I mentioned before, the public will have access over all internal and external trails and parks. This is just an example of an advisory lane. It's essentially a single vehicle lane, and there's two pedestrian and bike show lanes on each side. It's a fairly new concept. The trail would be 2 meters wide. It would be compacted screens, so very fine gravel. The right of way here shows 10 meters, which would be at its thinnest buffer area. And most of the trail runs parallel to Ross Road. This is an example of neighborhood trail. Again, it's a 2 meter wide compacted screening surface with a the trail width meets the district standards, so it's in accordance with district standards for neighborhood and collective trails, but the buffer area exceeds the district standards. Some of the zoning bylaw changes since its original since the proposal was originally made. So originally the proposal was for 750 single-family lots. At the district's request, the applicant has commercial node in the multi-family mix. The school was added as a permitted use on the multi-family parcels. Two public land areas were previously contained within the comprehensive development zone, but we've taken those out and assigned the public zoning to it. Also, agriculture was added as a permitted use in the Brackendale Farmers Institute Park. A number of official community plan policies. Although the area is currently within a major debris flow hazard area, if it can be mitigated, it would be in line with the city's policy, which directs us to avoid development in high hazard areas. Squamish, of course, is prone to those hazards, and most of our flat land is subject to flood. As well as affordability. As part of this project, will be presented later on. Affordable housing is a requirement. It provides for appropriate transition between existing neighborhoods and the common character of Brackendale. So it has on the outskirts the development, single family, and the multi-family is concentrated more within. It's walking distance to commercial, institutional, and parks, and it is This slide here represents the breakdown of the community energy contribution targets. So based on the density of the proposed development, the target is 7.6 millions. Of course, this is voluntary amenity. It's based on district's interim policy. The breakdown of where the allocation would go is 30% of the contribution would go towards general amenities, 5% this is in line with the district's community and energy inclusion policy. So the developer has proposed an amended package, not all of which is eligible as the CAC according to our policy, but we did provide it as the developer has proposed. And according to the developer, the overall package, when we put together the parts package, this is a table that represents the aspects of the proposal or the proposed package that are eligible as community and energy contributions. So, Brackendale Farmers is a big part. It is eligible for $1 million in terms of cash value. Upgrades to the Great Peters Trail and the extension of the trail is also eligible. The proponent also proposes 1.5 children's playgrounds, pump park, and rock bouldering. Because all of these amenities will be accessible to the public, it is also recognized that it is an eligible contribution of $55,000. The Great Peters Trail excess land dedication, so anything above 5%, is also eligible as a CAC. Affordable housing, the component has committed to $4.265 million. Leverage that amount with either district funding or provincial or federal funding to maximize the amount of units that can be constructed. At this point, we haven't determined how many units that we yield, but what we do know is that the proponent has committed to providing that sum, and the units will have to be constructed prior to the 301st residential unit being built on the lands. All of these amenities will be secured. Of this development, such as the debris flow area, which is, of course, the principal condition of this development, which needs to be built by the developer, and the funding for the maintenance of this area will have to come out of this development area. It is a requirement, and it will have to be built prior to subdivision approval if the development goes ahead. As I mentioned, the development area will be responsible for funding the have to be done prior to completion of services or issuance of occupancy permit for each phase. So each node in that development represents a phase in it, and the trail will be improved and dedicated as those phases come online. Those phases come online, so then work will be done at the same time as the servicing is being done. The internal strata parks will have to be completed. The improvements to those parks will have to be will be phased in at occupancy of each phase as well. The green building standards, the commitment to exceed the PC building code will have to be registered on title of the properties and will have to be exhibited prior to issuance of building permits. The neighborhood commercial, a minimum of 1,200 square meters, which is approximately 13,000 square feet, that will have to be completed prior to reporting that's been done to date confirms that there are no riparian water courses in this area, which is unusual for Squamish. The 2007 biological assessment indicated that habitat north of Squamish Valley Road and along the river corridors was more diverse and significantly more utilized by mid and larger size mammals. This speaks to the site's capability and clean state when it comes to migrating. Yes, the presence of those species, some of which are vulnerable on the site, and so that will be done at the subdivision stage. All of the reporting that's been done today will be registered on the titles of these properties to make sure that the environmental recommendations of those reports are implemented. The mitigation barrier will be subject to a separate environmental impact assessment process. Development potentially means that the hazard has to be addressed before development. Hazard mitigation to address the proposed development would also provide hazard mitigation to existing schools, residences, major provincial and other private assets, as well as First Nation lands currently exposed to the roof hazard. Some of the main steps taken to date with respect to applying for hazard management. In 2013, the expert review panel established council adopted recommendations and set rules and norms for the area for each of the Later in 2016, the district did its own process to make sure that all of the alternatives have been assessed when it comes to managing the hazard, and the Upper Canyon debris barrier proposed by the applicants was identified as the most promising option. In October of 2016, we had all received a presentation from the Inspector Dex as previously mentioned. Responsible for the design, capital, and maintenance costs of the mitigation structure. The barrier structure will be located at the apex of the fan on Crown land. Currently, it is Crown land. District would have to get a permanent tenure of that land if this proposal goes ahead. The conceptual estimate for capital works, which is building the barrier, is at 45 million. And the Dikening Authority is a concept that the district is exploring as area. One of the that is legally possible. Funding and maintenance of the barrier would include, so the maintenance regime would include monitoring and maintaining the barrier on a regular basis, clearing out smaller debris flow events, and rehabilitating following larger events, which could mean that the dam would have to be rebuilt if a significant event happened when it was built. From the development area to a local area service tax. So the district will have to go through a process of creating a service area that is just applicable to this development. Significant restoration is required. The funding area could be expanded in the future if additional development is completed on the plan. So if there's additional proposals that take advantage of the barrier, the district could expand the local area service. We have confirmation from the government that emergency management VC funding would likely not be available to rehabilitate the barrier. Currently, it doesn't look like there would be much potential funding available to remediate the structure. Some traffic and servicing work has been done on this proposal. The first traffic impact study was done in 2014, back when the original proposal was for 750 lots. The impact study showed that there was some section as well as on Ross and Road section. If the proposal goes ahead prior to subdivision, an update of the traffic study will have to be included to make sure that this vehicle density is addressed in traffic flow. Preliminary servicing deficiencies were also identified, including undersized water mains, sewers, an upgrade needed for the lift station, and addressed if development goes ahead. Modeling will also be required prior to adoption to finalize requirements for water flows and sewer, and a comprehensive stormwater management plan will be required at subdivision if the rezoning and official community plan amendments are successful. We have received, I believe, 14 submissions since the hearing was advertised. Public comments range between support for the development in terms of land use and housing affordability and shortage of housing that Squamish is facing at the moment, to concerns regarding the environment and the recreational values in the area. The public hearing was advertised in the last two editions of the Squamish Street. Notices have been mailed out to adjacent property owners, and the legislative requirements have been met. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks for that. It's pretty clear. I mean, in our letters, we got quite a few questions about the berm and how it's fairly clear. There's still some things happening.
Yes, and some of those things will likely be only possible to resolve once we have a detailed design of the barrier. If this development proceeds past third reading, then the applicant will engage in the detailed design, which is expensive, which is why it hasn't been done yet.
It's big deal.
Well, the applicant will have to pay for the installation of the barrier, for all the capital works, in terms of funding, the maintenance requirements, everything will be loaded that the district might then expand the service area.
Separate. Another one in here talks about strata roads and sidewalk.
Yes.
So they shovel their own sidewalk?
Yes, they're all going to be strata roads,
Yeah, I know, I guess.
except for
It's
Ross
like
Road.
they have wall apartments now, you know. The affordable housing, we have a slide there on the affordable housing. And, you know, 4.265 million.
They own the land, and
So
so
that's all going into
some of it might have to go towards applying the land because the applicant owns the land. And so if the district wants to own the unit, rather than it being subject to a housing agreement, then we would have to acquire the land unless this housing went above the neighborhood commercial, which is also a potential.
And then, so I mean, I like that, but we did also.
Chair, if you can't hear council, please let me know and I'll make sure we're.
Can't hear.
We can't hear
Can't
you.
hear.
If I turn it up. Yep.
But you can hear the answers.
Yes.
We'll move on to Councillor Race.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
So, similar topic to Councilor Pryor. A concern, I think some of the concerns in the community relate to who cares, so that would cover maintenance over time. But the difficulty, I think, is if there was a significant event in the early years of the development, before these taxes are received and build up a fund to handle such things, in addition over top of the annual maintenance. And there's a report attached in here, which I understand was provided by the developer, which acknowledges that one of the significant costs of maintenance for a structure like this, the companies and stuff, and one company has a debt, you can't necessarily get the shareholder. And so if there was a debt and there was a responsibility of that company, it does not necessarily transfer to the district, and you could sue the district for it. But the problem would be you would have a barrier which now needs repair. You have a subdivision down below it, which probably wouldn't be there if it wasn't for the barrier, and there's no money to pay for it. So regardless of we look at the development, but is it realistic for us to change the tax structure, say 5 or 10 years from now, to significantly upgrade it to pay for a special event like this? If you like a strata corporation, you probably
Can you introduce yourself, please?
Gary Buxton, one of the general managers here at the district. We don't have a definitive answer to that question. The options that are on the table are you could provide a special assessment through the service area. That depends on whether or not how big the cost is. There's a proposal around insurance. Borrowing is an option. It's not desirable. We have spoken to the province about
Fund repairing the community that would be wiped out by the event, but not fund the debris fill barrier cleaning on a regular basis. So it's just the maintenance. They're not funding the regular maintenance that would have to be included in the special area assessment.
correct, yes.
And the other question I had is, you mentioned exceeding code. Is this on the housing, that they would exceed BC building code?
Yes.
Is that the developer's decision to do that? We have no legislative ability to ensure that they exceed the building code, is that correct?
That's right.
And the 10,000-year event is conceptually comparable to something like a maximum credible earthquake or a probable maximum flood. So it's within the realm of possibility. But the cost estimates for the barrier that were in attachment 9 are based on a 2,500-year return event and suggest that overtopping would happen for anything larger than that. And so my assumption is that the barrier would have to withstand overtopping in its design. But what is missing in the case, if we are going with that probability, is this cost estimate even close to what will be required? Because the report says that if you build it to the 2,500-year standard, you would have to build other mitigation measures lower down, including redesigning possibly what the development looks like, debris basins and other mitigation aspects closer to the highway. So I'm just trying to get a sense of whether this $45 million number is at all accurate, and if we have somehow decided to use.
It's not proposed to use a hazard-based approach. So a hazard-based approach is where you would say you're going to protect against an event with a specified return period. So the classic example is we built our dikes to protect against a 1 in 200 year return period flood. In this case, the second expert panel recommended that we use a risk-based approach. So that's where you evaluate a whole range of possible events, and you look at the risk to loss of life on an annual basis that could be used to further mitigate risk downstream of the barrier. And those details haven't come forward yet. I think we need to complete an updated hazard assessment. We have to do some preliminary design on the barrier and determine what the risk levels are downstream in order to determine any other mitigation measures that need to get that risk within a tolerable level.
Thank you for that. So I think it's important for all of our language costs, but what I read in other parts is that more and other mitigation elements might be required. And if we're not consistent, there's an opportunity that we might not have enough to operate everything that gets built or maintain it. I have one more.
No, please go.
So elsewhere in the report, it talks about, and there's a bit of inconsistency here. Our staff report says that we would collect $205,000 per year from this development if we put in a special area tax. So I'm a behavioral scientist, not a mathematician, but I think I understand compound interest, and I think I understand inflation. And if you just apply even a conservative inflation rate of 1.5%, we need much more than $45 million in the bank if you look at that 65-year number. So if you put 1.5% interest or inflation on construction costs 20 years from now, realistic in their thinking, and aren't contemplating things like inflation and changes. And as my colleagues have mentioned, what happens when there's only 120 homes built, but we have a major event, and there isn't anything in the reserve, and we can't compromise our ability to borrow money because we've got a whole other town to maintain and build. So I'm still very concerned about
Throughout the public hearing. Maybe I'll just quickly go to Councillor Chappelle.
Sure. Do we have we need mitigation? Does the district have any plans outside of this for mitigation in Brackendale?
We do not.
Thank you. So now I will go to the public. First up, we have Chief Ian Campbell with the proponent. And on deck is Councillor Chris.
Am I speaking too loud in this there?
I think you're, push it away a little bit. There
It's
you
my
go.
long guy's voice. No, good evening. Thank you, Mayor and Council, and thank you to the staff for the excellent work in your presentation this evening. And good evening to our respected elders, our community members, each and every one of you, our friends and relatives. I'm pleased to see a number of our hereditary chiefs and our elected councillors that are here. If I can just say that our history is your history. What I'm hearing here is a lot of concern about potential hazards and mitigation and the homage and respect that is being paid to Inchkai, which is the real way of saying Chikai. Chikai is an anglicized way of saying Inchkai, which refers to this beautiful mountain that we look at each day and celebrate this part of the world, that this is our home collectively. And the land is laden with mythology, and for all of our children and grandchildren for the foreseeable future. For we have many communities today that are at risk. We have the Chikai Reserve, which I see some of my relatives here from Chikai, and Chiakamish, which I don't know how you say it in English, Chiakamis or something like this. Chiakamish, place of fish weirs, and along with Whalecombe and Kaltain, Yapopsim, CHM, all of our communities along the river here that are currently at risk and vulnerable by a torrential hazard. So this is very real in looking at the ongoing concern. But I ask you, what protections are in place today, and what are those solutions for us to mitigate those risks as is without this project? And is this project part of that cost-benefit analysis to add value to the growth strategy of this region, to, again, actualize reconciliation in this modern era in Canada where the narrative is now changing? This is an exciting era for all of our children. We're here to introduce ourselves once again and to welcome and to build a relationship. So I think that that is part of the feeling that I have when I see in the presentation, and I know the discussions at our council table, that our colleagues feel very much the same, that we're optimistic that we can solve many of the intelligent questions that are being asked. The metrics, the measurements, the mitigation, these are very important concerns, but also don't lose sight of the importance of relationships. That is also very important to finally get to where we are here tonight, to have this opportunity to speak and to share our vision for future development and growth strategies. There's a lot more I'd love to share with you at this time, but I'm going to leave it at that and turn the mic to my colleagues, Yatokton, Wecho, Siya.
Thank you, Chief Campbell. On deck is Michael Hutchison.
I'll stand back.
Perfect.
Hadsqual Tanoyap, Siams, Chris Lewis, Queen Sna, Skohomashof, to hazards. And we've lost many loved ones and family members. The reason I bring this up is for many decades, the Squamish Nation has been looking at the mitigation of the Chikai fan, as we are in the direct line, along with many of you, if something happens. The question wasn't posed today about what if it happens tomorrow, what are we going to do? And the expert panel has put the Squamish Nation, all the citizens of the District of Squamish. So we have hit many roadblocks around mitigation of this debris hazard. We have talked to the federal government because we are a federal jurisdiction as First Nations, and they will not do any mitigation measures because we live in a floodplain. We have talked to the province and try to bring them along with this journey so that we can find something that now. We have other reserves on the other side of the river that have no flood mitigation. We have issues. So this is the first step about protecting us, not just the Squamish Nation, the district. And I also want to implore the Mayor and Council about the relationship that we continue to build, that we're good neighbors with one another, that we work together for the betterment of
37989 Cleveland Avenue, Squamish. I represent Cornerstone Development proponent. I'm going to restrict my comments to affordable housing. And I think for the last 15 years I've been building affordable housing. And affordable is different for everybody. What is affordable housing and how do you create housing that is affordable? It's different to different people. It's different at different times of your life. And it's different in different communities. I think one of the things we have tried here is to start with, we've tried to make the people the opportunity to build a home for themselves. Now I understand most people move into a townhome or an apartment in their first step in the housing compendium. But one of the ways you can make a house affordable is give people the opportunity to build it for themselves. Make the houses modest, make the land modest, and that's what this development has tried. So that's the first point. Second point is around the housing contribution. If you want to take it in cash, that's okay. What we would like is we mirror the
family home builder in town. Just wanted to touch on a couple points in support of this project. Affordability, which Michael just touched on. If we can all agree that we have an affordable single-family housing issue here, this will not be changed until we have more inventory. We're currently, this is targeting us who live here, and it will be affordable. This model works. Amble Path is a great example of that. Reduce the dirt that people need to buy. The developer takes over the green space, the parks, the community garden, the trails, the bridges. People can buy less dirt and build more house, and it's affordable for them. The other point is the local Squamish impact. My company services, as well as the population, where it makes sense for more companies or businesses to go in there and provide more services. Finally, just on the history of the developer, I built several homes in Crumpet Woods, built and lived in Amble Path, and I think this is a builder that we can get behind as a community again. They have a track record of following through effectively on their community amenities. They developed predominantly within
established in the corridor in the mid-1950s and has been working in the corridor ever since. Our principal has been here since that time. Our road building manager was born in town in 1971, and he's worked with the company since he was in his late teens and old enough to do so. I'm the relative newcomer, having just arrived in 1979, but they do assure me I'll be a local soon enough. We've worked in some areas that have been devastated by some of the events that have been. We've seen what happens here, and maybe some of the people aren't aware what we've come through so far, and some of the things that are sort of hanging over our heads, so to speak, still. The earth-fill dam that's proposed is certainly not a new concept. They've been built the world over. We have several in British Columbia. In fact, about 15 years ago, our company helped a local contractor up in Pemberton, and we've built some earth-fill dams that have now taken a month. An office building might take a year, and this is simply a matter of scale. As far as the comments I've heard this evening, people are concerned about the dam being used before it's fully refunded. To me, that's kind of a situation where you're standing there wondering how you're going to pay to get your airbag on your car fixed when it just saved your life. I took Google Earth this evening and drew a line from my house to the southern end of the proposed development. It's 750 meters. The schools my children go to, in case you hadn't figured out, we support the dam both as a business and as residents of the community. And we're looking forward to having something in place so that all of us at the north end of town can sleep a little easier at night. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Danielson. I think we'd all like to know the contractor you used to build a house in a month, but that's another story. Gwen Harry, and thank you very much.
Was there anything else?
No, that's it. I was just being silly. Gwen Harry and Robert Baker is on deck.
I heard the young man say he's been here since, he's a newcomer and he's been here since 1979. No, I've seen this, I've been here since 1950. My husband was born in this area. And I've seen the development in the Brackendale area. When I first came here, there was hardly any homes along the highway on Government Road. So I've seen a lot of development. Maybe so many hundreds of years, it'll come down. Earthquake will bring it down. And so the hospital was either built, they wanted to build it by the Mormon church up there on the other side. I can remember that. And the other choice is where it is now. And I can remember the meeting we had where they were worried about the Chica fan, and they were also worried about the hospital. You know, I'm old, it's not going to be part of me. I got a home, but I always think of the future of our children. And not just my own children. You know, like they say, a lot of kids went to the school, they live here, they'll get old and grow here. Many of us do. This is what's going to happen. So I just want to share that with you. And I made my son write this out because of my age. I needed to remember.
When you're on deck, you don't have to get up, but if you're sort of stuck behind some people, then maybe start moving your way forward. Thank you. Welcome.
Robert Baker. First time I heard about this a few years back, and I didn't know what it's all about. And what in my mind is our lands here. I came up here in 1937 by canoe. I'm asking what's happening to our own nation. And I hope this meeting here will liven up our chief and council. I really hope that, because we really need something done ourselves. You know, I'm a great one for talking about these lands that we own. My great-great-grandmother had a longhouse down at the river, racking cattle in there and sheep. I was here when we had all that sheep, cattle, farms. We didn't go hungry, but we never thought to see the end of our land. We were trying hard to get the government to look after our land, but what we watched, the river washed away our land. And they wouldn't do a damn thing about it because they were looking at something else. Next thing I know is it's going to be all gone, but we want to stop to everything. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Shirley Toman. On deck is Donna Billy. Is Shirley here? No? No. Okay. Donna Billy. On deck is
sick.
Chief Dale Harry.
Humpty is sick. Hi, everybody. Cecilia is my name. Thank you for listening to us and including us in our generation now, but we're looking at the great, great, great children. We all are going to have them. And so far, everybody says, yes, they're going to build affordable housing. What's affordable housing to you? Because a lot of us got jobs, but we're the working poor. People got to remember that. Some of my nieces and nephews, they can't even afford to pay rent. They're living outside. So when you talk about starving for information, that's a prime example. But we do need employment and training in Squamish to create some real jobs. Not just a job here and there for the welfare to fill out the form. We want people off of welfare and working in this town because we're known to be developing and we're going strong up here. There's all kinds of developers moving to Squamish and people from out of Canada.
648 Chief Harry Drive. You know, it's a pleasure to be here, and you know, and thank staff for providing the report here, and you know, and welcoming all our elders, our chiefs, our councillors, and our members of our communities. You know, I just wanted to speak on behalf of a member of this community, a member of the Squamish chiefs and councillors that came up here earlier. It's very important for us. And secondly is development. Development, development, development. You know, I've never ever seen the Squamish Nation being a part of the development. Not one. This is probably the first one in Squamish. And we want to participate in there, but also being a part of the solution. Build a barrier.
You'll get Mexico to pay for it, so.
But you know, one of the things I just wanted to share too as well is that, you know, looking at the young people, you know, I got my daughter and my son-in-law to come up. I told them, this is your future. They're talking about you. You're going to be going up there and you're going to be needing housing. You know, and certainly dealing with it, and it's a lot of our children, right, and our children's children. 60 there's a lot of affordable rental units here in Squamish because we're lacking it. Once we built this highway, right, this highway was improved, a lot of people come into Squamish and they take over the housing units. So we need some affordable housing units for our communities. You know, and one of the things that, you know, I just wanted to share that, you know, I feel dear in my heart, and it works for the community. And I just wanted to share those few words, and you know I support the project, the CMA.
Thank you very much. Lorette Baker, and on deck is John Johnson. Please state your name and your street address, and if you represent yourself, a business or an organization.
Myself, 994 Axon Road, Wayweeka. And I support the project that we are talking about tonight because of my great-grandchildren that are coming.
Already lost some people? Art Harry? Shirley Lewis? I'm here. Please state your name and your street address, and if you represent yourself, a business or an organization.
Slow but surely. 815 Lewis Drive, Chiakamis, IR11. I do support the project, and I've been updating myself with it with Dale Harry, and he had a prosthesis leg, and the firemen of the day wouldn't help him. And I was going to go across that bridge. Thank God I didn't, because I would have went down the river. It wasn't time for me to be spawning, I tell you that. But I had to say it.
Thanks for
But
sharing.
I do support this project. Thank you.
Luc de Rosière, and on deck is Brenda Bain.
I'm a successful entrepreneur, and I've gotten the Business of the Year award, and I want to see affordable housing. My daughter has 3 children, and I'm about to move out of my own home and go tiny living so my daughter can have a home, because she can't afford $1,700 a month with 3 kids. I was renting before I got my home, and I was paying $625 a month, and I thought that was low. I won't. I don't have a mortgage. I actually do. I have a house in Seashop, but I went in on it with my father-in-law, but I don't pay a mortgage. I don't know what I would do if I had a mortgage. There's not a lot of entrepreneurs here in Squamish. Like, I know there's lots, but for me to start my own business, I got rooked into it when this highway was being built. And that's when this whole town crashed, after that highway was built. This project, and I'm willing to hire you. You just have to come and find busy bees. I drive 2 red trucks. But again, I'd like to, I want to go to another town like Kitimat, but what I want to do is take my business, go to another town and hire their community members. And
address is 37648 Chief Harry Drive.
We ask you to speak a little bit more into the
Oh,
microphone.
there you go. And I live on Squamish Reserve, and I support this because I feel like we need affordable housing. I'm only 19. I realize how hard it is, like how expensive it is to live here. And considering I have a baby on the way, I think it would be nice to have affordable housing. And yeah, I support this. Thank you.
Thank you, congratulations. Thank you. Ramsey Sam, and on deck Tom Harry. Welcome, Ramsey.
Hi. Ramsey, and I support affordable housing because a lot of people can't afford for rent. Me and my wife Gwen have a baby on the way, and I just support the affordable housing. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Tom Harry, on deck Dan Lewis.
Well, Dan's not here tonight, but I'm Tom Harry. My ancestral name is Locksmote, born and raised in Squamish. You heard my brother and my mother talk earlier. I Actually, I'm living off reserve right now. I'm at 38088 4th Avenue. But yes, that is a big problem, not having housing, not only on reserve, but off reserve as well. But I would like to speak in support with it, just with my also being a business person. I'm part of a group called the Harmony Group, and we got four of us are combined together as myself for Squamish Valley Security. It's my business. Dan Lewis, that is not here tonight, but he's at Well Contracting. Alan Barr for West Bar Contracting, and LNA for Donnie Schnur. Now, yeah, we would like to see this thing go through because it also helps us to put some food on our tables for our families. You know, it is going to get kind of hard to find work around this town. It's a lot of competition. You know, as part of the history, like I'm 57 now, but I've been involved in the community of our Squamish for like the Squamish Nation Peacekeepers, and we've been involved of helping evacuate when we had natural disasters, and the biggest one that we had were our floods, and that was up in the Chica area. And then we not only looked after our own people, but also the neighboring communities, used to be Tantless and up in Midnight Way. But that is a good concern, and like I heard the previous speakers, we do have the personal and the technology that we can overcome this, and so we can provide a safer place for our future, the kids, and to have good homes and affordable, as I keep hearing. So, you know, yeah, not everybody can have that big luxury home, but all they need is the roof, plumbing, heat. So, you know, those are the main ingredients anyway that for a good life. So I'd like to thank you.
Dan Lewis, and then Christine Baker's on deck.
Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's nice to see a good turnout tonight. Obviously, this is a pretty important project for everybody. I just want to say thank you to the District of Squamish.
Could you just state your street address? 6580
Squamish Valley Road, Chacamas, IR 11.
Thank you.
Just want to say thank you to the District of Squamish for dredging the Chikai River in the last couple of years. That's not been mentioned at all. The amounts that we've taken out has been very small in comparison to what is there. But, you know, as everybody said, this is a safety concern for the whole of Brackendale and the Upper Chacamas communities. It's going to create a lot of work for a lot of people in this town. You know, the life of the project, I believe, is going to be a 10-year project, I believe. 20. So you take that into consideration. How much money is that going to put into all these people who have companies and who hire people, look after families? Because traditionally, we were a logging community. You know, I remember growing up as a kid and going to see logging trucks coming down the valley constantly. Now it's far and few. We still have that entities in our community. But the developments are the way of things are going. I mean, it is what it is. And, you know, I'm really proud to see my people, the Squamish Nation, take part in this historic development, because we don't develop normally. So I think it's very, very good in that aspect, and it brings communities together of the whole Squamish. Everybody's going to work hand in hand in this project when it does get approved, right? I'm being positive. But other than that, thank you very much, and I support the project.
Thank you. Christine Baker. On deck is Dan Baker.
Good evening. Tlachtlaquoth, my ancestral name. I live in 1299 Chief Billy Drive in Stotmas. Wasn't born here, but was raised here all my life. I'm also manager for the Yatsutoy Health Services and IS Manman Child and Family Services for the Squamish Valley. I totally support this project, only because we've got a lot of young families who really want to live here in this community. I understand some of the challenges around building of, but living here in Squamish, we always had that challenge. And because of the recreational piece of this community in these coming years, a lot of people choose to live here. And we basically, we're not going anywhere. We're going to be here for the rest of our lives as a nation. And I really like to thank council, our chiefs, our elders, everybody here tonight supporting this project, because I think it's important. You know, in dealing with, you know, young moms and young dads and, you know, trying to look for a place to live, it's tough. We've got, in our community, in our, some of our community homes, we have 11, 12 people living in a 3-bedroom home. So it's just getting ridiculous. A lot of people, you know, like some of the people don't want to move to Vancouver. Because that's not the point. They've chosen to live here in Squamish, as you have. And so I really support this. I really like the fact that it's government to government. Chief and council, our chief and council and the district of Squamish are coming together and working together on this. And I know there's some things that need to be, you know, dealt with, but I guess one of the things that I have to say is I support this because I support my community. I want something for this community, and I want something for our young children. And coming together, you know, we as First Nations and people living in this community, I think it's a much needed thing. So that's all I need to say. Hosiam.
Thank you. Dan Baker, and on deck is Bob Fast. Please state your name, street address, and if you represent yourself, a business or an organization.
Hi, Dan Baker, 37620 Billy Drive, Storm Reserve, I-24. I support this all the way. So I'm happy to hear about this, and it's like to create jobs for the community and to see everybody get into this. For the affordable housing, and that is like, yeah, thumbs up for that. I want to see that happen. It is hard to get a job out here when you're living on minimum wage. It's a struggle. You buy your food day by day, and trying to stretch out your money in that. It's like, it's kind of hard, but that's where you have to go to school and take up a career. And I went to school for my heavy-duty mechanics, did my 3rd year, and I'm an operator, can run machine. I'm a logger now, bucking, scaling. So I'm a jack of all trades, master of nothing. But so I'm for supporting this all the way. And I'd like to see some training going on for the young guys that's coming up, and put them at a like they said, a living wage where they're not just struggling. So thank you guys.
Thank you very much. Bob Fast, and on deck is Kumi Germain.
Good evening, my name is Bob Fast, 40530 Thunderbird Ridge.
I'm representing Diamond Head Lands. I don't have a street named after me. But I'm in support of this project. I think that with proper planning, design, and construction, this project can be built and withstand all Mother Nature can throw at it, and so I am supportive. Thank you.
Thank you. Kumi Germain, and on deck is Rick Hunter. Please state your name, your street address, and if you represent yourself, a business or an organization.
My name is Kumi Germain. I live at 41967 Government Road. I'm here today to speak in support of the Chikai Neighborhood Development Plan, both as a local business owner and a longtime Brackendale resident. Local jobs and affordable living are two key contributions that this development can offer. As a local small business owner, we're looking at years and continuous work for our company and the numerous local families that could be employed should we have an opportunity to work on a project of this scope. As a homeowner living on the doorstep to this development, I'm excited by the services and amenities, such as future retail and community services that could be offered, as well as the addition of more parks and public space within our community. Squamish is a bedroom community to Whistler and Vancouver, as well as a highly desirable place to live because of what our town has to offer. There's no shortage of people looking to live here, so what we need are jobs and houses. However, the growth potential for Brackendale is currently limited, as it is unlikely that the required debris barrier will ever be built without the support of a private developer. At minimum, the construction of the debris barrier should speak for itself in the benefit that this development will offer. In closing, I personally hope to see this development go through so that my own family can one day build an affordable home in the community that we already live in. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Rick Hunter, and on deck is Jeff Freeze.
Rick Hunter, Depot Road. I'm just wondering, these fellows mentioned about the traffic flow into this area. Is it all going to go on Ross Road? Is that going to be the only access, or is it going to be off the highway, or?
Yeah, I'll go to staff to see if they can maybe outline the traffic analysis.
The traffic, the way the community is designed right now, will be feeding into Ross Road and then spilling out on Government and Depot Roads.
So that could be approximately 2,400 cars a day on Ross Road?
We don't have the actual...
Well, 1,200 homes, everybody should have a
counts.
car.
Eventually, yes, and Ross Road would have to be built to a certain standard to accommodate that traffic, which would be a local collector.
Is there no way that another access off the highway or anything?
Very unlikely that another access would be given off the highway.
Thank you.
Thank you. Jess Freeze, and then on deck is Kirby Brown. Please state your name and your street address, and if you represent yourself, a business or an organization.
Good evening. My name's Jessamy Fries. I'm representing both myself as a resident and also as a business owner of Sunwolf and Fergie's Cafe. We're at 7002 Squamish Valley Road, also known as Fergie's. So, yeah. My husband Jake and I bought Sunwolf 7 years ago, and at the time we met with geotechnical engineers. We read a number of modelling reports. We kind of felt like we understood the nature of the hazard. But we were also 30 years old. We guided trips on the Ilaho River. As a ski patroller, I used to set off avalanches with explosives. So I think, like many of us in Squamish, we had quite a big risk appetite. We did also take some comfort in the existing infrastructure that was on the fan, including hydro and roads and schools even. But eventually we decided this was a risk worth taking for us. Fast forward 7 years, and unfortunately, I'm not 30 anymore. We have 2 kids. We've built and are continuing to try to build a successful business. We have 50 staff in the summer. I'm not going to speak much to affordable housing because it's been mentioned a lot, but I would like to mention that we estimate a third of our staff live in vehicles in the summer because of the lack of affordable housing in Squamish. Also, because of this proposal, the Chikai fan has become much more in the public eye. We've seen much more detailed modelling now, which really puts us and the Chikai Reserve there right in the firing line. And also living beside the river there, someone said to us the other day, this is one of those situations where it might be good if a small torrent came down so everyone got the idea that this was real. We're living beside the Chikai. This is very real. We're used to how dynamic the river is. We've seen the district of Squamish already spending substantial amounts of money to just clean up that the small little area at the confluence that can contain debris. In fact, twice in our 7 years, the district have come in and removed 800 dump trucks full of material, and these are just nothing, small debris. So I guess what I'm saying is the risk has become very real to us. Now, I know we could move, but our location is instrumental to our business. We've spent 7 years pouring our hearts and soul into building this business, and we have great plans that we still want to put in place. And because of it being location-based, our only option here is to walk away. So it feels to us like the nation and Michael Hutchison have come up with a proposal that protects 3 reserves, the Chikai community, substantial infrastructure, 2 schools, numbers of residents of Brackendale, whilst also addressing the affordable housing market problem. And so we see this as a great opportunity for us and many others. And my understanding is the expert review panel has said something must be done. It's not an option to do nothing, so I'm wondering if we don't go ahead with this proposal, what are we going to do and who will be paying for it? Because presumably then it would be the entire community of Squamish footing the bill. And if I could just make one last point, just listening to everyone talk, I understand it's a real economic concern. If a big event happened in the early years and not enough money had been built up in the contingency fund to clean that up and to rebuild the barrier, I realise that's a big economic problem. But for some people like myself, our lives would have been saved, not just the people who live right by the river, but actually every child in Squamish goes to school on the Fan for a period of years. And so to my mind, while we may have an economic problem to deal with, we will also have built the barrier just in the nick of time, and we'll be incredibly fortunate. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Please. Yeah, we generally don't encourage any clapping during the public hearing, just to make sure everyone feels safe in expressing their point of view. So we have Kirby Brown, and up on deck is Kelly Hopkins.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So Kirby Brown, 39893 Government Road. I'm here as a resident and as a business operator, Sea to Sky Gondola. I think I just need to say ditto, perhaps, maybe. A new resident to town. I've only been living in Squamish proper for 2 years. I was in Paradise Valley for 2 years before and became ever more keenly aware of the flood potential of the Cheakamus and the Chikai. Then, and formerly, I was a resident of Pemberton, so I seem to like to live in places that are potentially wet. So I guess my comments as a private resident is we couldn't build the debris flow barrier soon enough. You know, you can call it a 10,000-year event or a 2,500-year event, but let's not roll that dice for much longer, if at all possible. I'm currently a renter in town. I have a fabulous job. I love this community. I intend to go nowhere. And yet in my future forecasting of what Kirby Brown eventually grows up into be, it's a homeowner. And this is where I would buy. This is exactly the form and function of development that I'd be looking towards, where I'm close to nature. I can escape with my dogs onto trails that are pre-existing. I love the amenity package in this. I think it's incredibly well balanced. Probably the most generous amenity package I've seen on a parcel this side, and I've been on the real estate development side as well over my years in the resort development community. And as an employer, you know, we currently rent houses for employees because they can't find them on their own, and we subsidize that. That's part of the nature of being in business, but certainly the only way to look into the future and be proactive about this escalating issue is to create supply. And when you've got a development that balances small densified units, in addition to the continuum that we all like to live in, we start off in apartments and then we get sick of our roommates and we move into condos, and then some of us grow up and get into relationships and have children, and you want to progress into single family homes. So it also provides, I think, quite an eloquent progression for the community. Thanks.
Thank you. Kelly Hopkins, on deck, Chris Addario. Please state your name and street address, and if you represent yourself, a business or an organization.
Okay, my name's Kelly Hopkins. I reside at 1555 Judd Road. I'm here representing my business as well as myself as a resident. I'm one of the owners of New Era Plumbing and Heating. Our services range from basic repairs and additions all the way up to multifamily homes and commercial buildings. We've been operating our company in Squamish since 2011, and we have about 40 employees right now. Our employees are a diverse range of local residents, ranging from 19 up to 45 years old. Some are single and they're renting small units in the area. Others have established homes and young families. 90% of our employees currently live in Squamish. While our employees differ in many ways, they do all seem to share one common element. They love Squamish and they want to be able to stay here. In order for them to be able to continue living in this beautiful community, they need two things: long-term stable employment and affordable housing. This brings me to our relationship with Michael Hutchinson. We have had the pleasure of working with Michael and his entire team over the past 5 years. He has awarded us 5 major commercial projects, along with a vast amount of single-family homes. He has truly been all that one can ask for in a general contractor and developer. He negotiates fair pricing, proper contracts, and the best payment terms that we do see in our business. Perhaps one of the most important points to make is that Michael always hires local when given the opportunity. Not only does this ensure further work for ourselves and our employees, it means he provides a great working environment between all of the local trades. In looking specifically at the proposed Chikai neighborhood, we would be very excited to see this come to life. The project will bring the following advantages to our business: job security for many years to come for our employees, an affordable housing opportunity for our employees to get into the market and set down roots in our community. In our company alone, we have at least 10 employees who would commit to purchasing affordable lots in this area right away if given the opportunity. This extra housing also means good possibility of more affordable rental units. And finally, we're excited about the unique opportunity to possibly work on a tiny home community, something we're interested in but have never had the chance. On a personal note, we have lived in Brackendale for the past 4 years. Our daughter is attending kindergarten at Brackendale Elementary this fall. We love the small community feel of the area. We can get on our bikes and pop over to see family and friends, walk to multiple parks and playgrounds, and our personal favorite, stop to feed the ducks in the creek. Because of these reasons, we are very excited to hear that the developer is covering the cost of construction to finally build a permanent debris hazard barrier. By doing this, he is safely opening up this area to many more families just like our own to live in and enjoy Brackendale. The addition of more park space, future amenities, and public areas is something that all current residents will enjoy as well. Thank you for taking the time to hear our support of this exciting project.
Thank you. Chris Aderio, and on deck, Anna Stupic. Please state your name, street address, and if you represent yourself, a business, or an organization.
Hi, my name's Chris Aderio, and I live at 7400 Arbutus Street, which is in Pemberton. So I'm here representing the Sea to Sky chapter of the Canadian Home Builders Association, and we're active here in Squamish, Whistler, and Pemberton. And we're here to speak in favor of the proposed development. I'm also a local contractor as well. We build houses in the area and employ some of our workforce that lives and works here. Our chapter covers Squamish, Whistler, Pemberton. CHBA is the voice of the residential construction industry, and so we advocate at all 3 levels of government, and on issues specifically related to housing, of course. We hope to work to ensure Canadians have access to homes that meet their needs at a price that they can afford to pay, and that the interests of home buyers and homeowners are understood by governments. The Chikai development consists of approximately 500 single-family homes, as well as over 600 multifamily units, which will obviously provide a lot of jobs and training opportunities for members of Squamish First Nation, as well as many other local residents for obviously many years to come. These are skilled trades jobs with good pay rates for people who live right here in town, and that drives money back into the local economy. In our opinion, this development is also beneficial to the community because of the unique type of product being offered. Smaller single-family lots are a sought-after product by many of your residents, and we can look at similar types of past local developments, such as Amblepath, as an indication of this project's potential for a successful outcome. The number of properties being offered is also a benefit, as it will help on the supply side of the equation to keep pricing at a level that is more affordable for local residents. I can also personally say that my employees could possibly benefit from the Chikai development, as it could provide them with the opportunity to own a home in Squamish again. Price gains have largely outstripped their ability to buy here now, And I think if they can't find stable housing in the long term, that they'll potentially leave town. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. Anna Stukas, and then Doug Top is on deck.
Thank you. My name is Anna Stukas. I'm here representing Carbon Engineering at 37321 Galbraith Road in Squamish. We are a technology development company that are now headquartered in Squamish. When we were first founded, we were based in Calgary, and we developed technology that is going to suck carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere. We're going to combine that carbon dioxide with renewably produced hydrogen and create recycled diesel fuel from those components. So think about it as recycling fuel. Yes, absolutely. Sorry. So the reason why that's, I know it's not quite relevant, but why it's important to us is that we, by choosing to come here, are locating high-paying, high-quality jobs here in Squamish. And one of the reasons why we chose Squamish when we were looking for a place to deploy our pilot plant was because of the unique circumstances of support from the municipality, support from the Squamish Nation, and a commitment to develop a clean technology industry here in Squamish that will provide the jobs that are so needed here. Critical to our ability to have these jobs and to have this growth is affordable housing. And one of the biggest challenges facing our staff in this expansion is affordable housing where they can live. We're currently investigating the feasibility of expanding from our current pilot stage to a commercial plant that we hope to locate here in Squamish. And in order to do that, housing is an absolutely critical component to that, so that the people that we intend to hire have places to live. So for those reasons, we are in support of this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. Doug Top, and then on deck is Bill Kirchhoff, and then we're going to take a few-minute break so we can relieve ourselves.
Could have waited. I'm so nervous I can barely stand up here. My name is Doug Top, and I'm just going to read this. I hope you don't mind. After over 30 years,
Could you just state
I'm
your
sorry,
street?
2009 Smoke Bluff Road, and I'm just here really to speak on my own behalf and to share some of my own experience. My name is Doug Top, and after over 30 years as Banff residents, my wife Michelle and I moved to Squamish 3 years ago. We've been coming to Squamish annually since the mid-90s and have a fondness for Brackendale that comes from literally hundreds of nights we've spent with good old Banff pals who live on Cottonwood Road. I've been in the real estate business for 23 years, and I have loads of experience working with builders and developers in the residential sector. I'm currently an associate broker with McDonald Realty here in Squamish, and I travel back and forth to Banff often with real estate-related business. Many of you in this room will be aware of the remarkable similarities between Canmore and Squamish, and I had a front row seat on the Canmore roller coaster for 20 years, and I'm here to offer you just my perspective and a few of the observations made as it underwent its transformation from a really sleepy, former resource extraction community to the tourism-driven recreational paradise it's known as today. About 20 years ago, there were a couple of small lot-sized, denser neighborhoods very similar to Amblepath that were proposed and developed in Canmore. They were primarily single-family homes, many with suites, but also some townhouses, and they totaled around 500 residences. The first neighborhood was called Riverstone, and the concept wasn't really beloved at the time. There'd never been anything like it locally in terms of density, and it seemed so tight. And due to that density, many locals just thought the development was maxing out on land values and the grab of the almighty dollar. But Riverstone was a huge success, and the Peaks of Grassy soon followed, with both neighborhoods building out very quickly. Those two neighborhoods provided a much-needed affordable housing solution for singles, first-time buyers, and young families who were attracted to the sort of lifestyle that communities like Canmore and Squamish tend to become known for as they evolve. Another important consideration back then, and right here, right now, included future housing requirements such as the need to provide adequate housing for service industry staffers and new business owners and their families who ultimately provide the goods and services required along the community growth curve. Keep in mind that in Squamish's case, many of these establishments haven't even opened or been built yet. Some of these people will be seasonal employees, but many of these folks will fall in love with Squamish just like you did, and they're going to want to stay here and raise their families. These types tend to be young, and they intend to add value, and we want them to stick around, which in turn puts pressure on our housing requirements. With the departure of so many longtime residents, Squamish is refreshing itself, and I'd suggest that we not only want, but we need to offer these new residents an opportunity that's within reach, so they may contribute to the overall fabric and the lifeblood of this community. If you look at resort and rec areas across North America, you'll find that development and provision of accommodation is a huge issue across the board, and affordable housing pressure on housing I skipped a line. And affordable housing opportunities are required to help address this demand. With the certainty of increased pressure on housing requirements here in Squamish, I see the proposed density in the Chikai neighborhood as both forward-thinking and appropriate, just like it was in Canmore 20 years ago, even though it wasn't seen as such at the time. With all of that in mind, I also see the Chikai neighborhood as more than an opportunity for new residents and young families looking for entry-level housing. There's also room for the baby boomer / empty nesters / grandparents who want to be near the grandchildren demographic to downsize to a smaller home. I'm one of those people. Neighborhoods that combine mature residents and young families are known to foster a diverse, vibrant community that can offer security, connectedness, and support that other communities might not. Did you know that the value of the mountain bike trail system in Squamish was recently evaluated at $12.9 million? It's an incredible asset and only one of our many. So here's another observation. As Squamish continues its evolution into more of a recreation and tourism-based economy, and with a brand like the Outdoor Recreation Capital of Canada, assets of that size and caliber become tremendous lifestyle-related drivers. Like Canmore and Whistler, perhaps not on that scale, we absolutely will see an increase in demand for second home ownership. This demographic will in turn and over time have its own very substantial effect on not only the demand for housing, but also on market values. One simple way to deal with this from a locals housing perspective is to be sure that there are allowances made for the provision of affordable land. I've seen firsthand how well that can and continues to work for hundreds of families in the Bow Valley, and the Chikai Neighborhood Plan is an excellent example in this regard. Squamish residents have been dreaming of this big boom for ages, and now that it's finally happening, many are wondering, holy cow, now what are we going to do? We love it here, we don't want to move, we're concerned about growth management, commercial and industrial expansion, higher density, and more. Fair enough. Canmore struggled with many of these same issues, and it's come out the other side as a world-class community beloved by visitors and residents alike. We can learn from their experience. Should town administration and community planners be held accountable? Yes, of course. But it's also appropriate that we come to a point where we give them the reins so they can get on with the business of looking out for and planning for our community's current and future interests.
Mr. Kopp, that's 5 minutes. Maybe if you could wrap up, that would be great.
I'll be as quick as I can, sorry. As for developers, along with community planners, they are the facilitators of growth, and this project presents them with huge challenges. What's often overlooked is their unusual risk tolerance, and what's often forgotten or not even recognized is that it's because of this risk tolerance that we all get our risk-free share of the realization of the benefits of their vision. In my experience, great developers are in it for the long haul, and they're tremendous forward thinkers who genuinely care about their community. They're problem solvers, often on a massive scale, just like this one, and it's not always about the money. This group has the skin in the game and the ability to deliver in a big way, and they're bringing us an innovative proposal that offers a solution to our need, our absolute need for affordable housing. One sec. Looking back at those two Canmore neighborhoods now, there are so many positives to reflect upon, and there's absolutely no question that the entire community is better off for having them. With the benefit of hindsight, I'm confident that Squamish residents can confidently stand behind the district, the developer, and the Chikai Neighborhood Plan, knowing that it will serve the community very well in the coming years. Thank you.
Thank you. Bill Kirkhoff, then we're going to take a 5-minute break, and I'm going to be very strict on the 5 minutes.
Bill Kirkhoff, unfortunately not from Squamish, but from Chilliwack.
Can you say your address, please?
10040 Chilliwack, Chilliwack Mountain, Road, Chilliwack, of course.
Timberline Place, is that correct?
Sorry?
Timberline
Timberline Place, sorry, yeah. I actually just moved. Anyway, yeah, unfortunately, I'd love to live out here, but, we have worked around British Columbia, for many years and done projects in many different communities. We are in the construction and the development business. And I just wanted to say a few words to support the project. We are doing other projects, in Squamish right now and still looking at developing some other projects that are in the approval stage. We've been in the development business for about 45 years around BC, and done many communities in the developed many communities in the various parts of the province. And we've been working in Squamish for about 6 or 7 years now, and we've certainly enjoyed it. It's been a great community to do business in. And I've been following the project that is being proposed here by the Squamish Nation and Cornerstone Developments, and I've seen the master plans. And I truly believe that this development certainly ranks amongst the best that I've seen in BC being developed. Okay, so it's a great proposal, a great plan, and I believe that the community that the people will be able to live in will be really good for the local people as well as those who are planning to move in from other areas, because you do have quite a lot of import from other areas. And particularly because, of course, Vancouver and other areas become so expensive. I also believe that this project provides a lot of other benefits to the community. It's being developed in an environmentally responsible manner by the partners. It's been studied for years to ascertain all the relevant issues that have been addressed, as well as provide a supply of reasonable, affordable housing for Squamish for years to come. And it will resolve the Chikai fan debris hazard, which also a huge community benefit as part of the overall amenity contribution of some $70 million. I certainly have the confidence in this partnership to carry out this project as envisioned, and I hope that the mayor and the council will grant the green light for this project to continue to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. So it's 8:20. We're going to recess for 5 minutes. When I come back, it's Torrance Savyord and Jasmine Hensel who will be on deck. Thank you. We are back in our special council meeting, the public hearing for the Chikai development in Brackendale. And I just would like to ask anyone speaking to speak directly to the application in front of us about the development, not about the developer, please. We want to make sure all points of view are expressed here and have the opportunity to be communicated here. And we're about halfway through our speakers list, although I suspect we might have lost some people at the intermission there. So first up we have Torrance Savyord, next up is Jasmine Hensel, and then Paul Wick.
Hello, my name is Torrance Savyord, and I live on 1533 Eagle Run Drive in Brackendale.
And if I may, just have everyone speak into the microphone and towards council, just for everybody else. Thank you.
No problem. I am representing myself and my family, and I've also been asked to read 2 letters out. So I'll start with myself. I support this development for 2 main reasons. One is I fully support the Squamish Nation, and the second reason is the safety of my family. We all live in Brackendale, and we go to school there, and through this proposal, this development, that hazard will be mitigated. So I'd also like to read 2 letters here that I've been asked to read. The first is to Mayor Heinzman and Squamish Council. I'm currently away from the Squamish, and I'm writing in to show my support for the proposed Chikai development. This development addresses the need for overall housing and begins to address the need for affordable staff housing for local businesses. As a local business owner, I felt the pressure of housing affordability impact the ability to grow our business during these exciting times in Squamish. I've also witnessed the stress and strain it has put on those who can't find adequate housing options. I believe having new developments step up in this way is necessary at this point in Squamish. The commitment to build a debris barrier will also be to the safety and benefit of a large portion of Squamish residents. Regards, Graham Young, owner, Canadian Outback Rafting. To Mayor Heinzman and Squamish Council. Chikai Neighborhood Public Meeting, Tuesday, January 24th, 2017. In principle and without prejudice, Squamish Terminals is supportive of the Chikai Neighborhood Development Plan in its current format, as it provides for a long-term supply of affordable and mixed-density housing, which is needed in our community to attract and retain employees, protection of park land and development of open spaces, trails, and other amenities accessible to the public, and protection from debris flow, debris hazard barrier for existing and future residents, businesses, and transportation infrastructure with connectivity to the rest of Squamish and the corridor. Sincerely, Kim Stegeman-Lowe, President, Squamish Terminals. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Jasmine Hensel and Paul Wick is on deck, and then Carl Halverson.
Hello, Jasmine Hensel at 40195 Kintara Drive. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Lots of familiar faces out here today, but many of you may or may not know who I am.
You could focus on
Sure.
council.
Yeah. I'm a local residential realtor in Squamish. I've been in real estate for the last 10 years in the community. I'm also an avid volunteer for Squamish. Recently retired from the Squamish Volunteer Fire Department, and I've sat on many boards and committees for the District of Squamish, as well as just community boards. I've worked in over a decade in the tourism industry in this area as well, and a huge community advocate. I want to preface by saying, as a realtor, I'm not connected in any way with the developer in terms of employment. I'm here on my behalf as a business owner and as a community member. Here today to support the Chikai development. I don't often come out to support a development, but I have made the effort to be here today because I've done my homework. I'm informed on the topic, and I've spoken to many community members in preparation for coming here today. I honestly feel like we've got a really good option here, and everything I'm hearing and seeing seems to be very supportive. Squamish and the community of Brackendale stand to benefit substantially from the approval of this development in countless ways. And first, Squamish sorely needs affordable living options for its residents. As more and more young families move to Squamish, there need to be more entry-level opportunities to get into the market. And with the initial offer to purchase being extended to Squamish residents, at least that's my understanding, I understand there will be ample time for locals to get into the market and be assured realtor, there have been a myriad of times when I've had to watch as longtime locals were unable to watch their children get into the Squamish real estate market. And because the prices have become too expensive, it's become really heartbreaking to watch. When families with numerous children, pets, outdoor gear, and what have you that want to be here for the outdoor recreation, have a difficult time and end up in condos or townhomes where it's really tight for them. But it's their only affordable option for them. So this gives more of an ample path feeling, something where it's a small, detached home, which we've seen has been very positive with Ample Path over the years, and quite popular, so huge demand there. The Chikai development is committed to allowing Squamish residents the first opportunity to purchase. Again, I'm thrilled about that. I think it's commendable and hugely needed. The second thing I wanted to touch on was the number of contributions that are being made to the community, which I think it's quite outstanding. I'm immensely pleased to see the protection, addition, and upgrading of existing trails in Brackendale area being addressed. It's something that's costly to the community to have to do through taxation and should be considered a huge win for Squamish. Additionally, the protection of the 50 acres of park, including the Brackendale Fall Fair lands, another huge win for Brackendale and Squamish. And a community amenity cash contribution of $1.5 million, which would be used towards a neighborhood amenity. Again, to have those funds to do something, to put towards something in that community would be a huge win. I love that the development is being planned as a walkable, bikeable community and the encouragement of green roofs, solar panels, and environmental targets. the possibility of a section of tiny homes, which we're seeing huge demand for. I could go on and on about all of that, but overall, just really, really happy to see what the community would look like. Third and lastly, and something that's really near and dear to my heart, is the debris hazard barrier. At a cost of $45 million, to see that the developer would be fronting those funds and taking care of that would be of huge significance for the district. Having a background in emergency services, I see a huge need for the barrier, and I think we as humans tend to think about risk management. We don't think about risk management in our day-to-day lives, but what we do is we react to it after the fact. And I'm hearing more and more this evening that, well, what happens if the barrier gets put to use, and how will we maintain it after the fact? But I think many people tonight have commented the huge need for the barrier is significant. Without it, if something does happen now, we're going to be cleaning up a ginormous disaster versus trying to fix something after the fact.
That's over 5 minutes now. So.
Is it okay? Just finally, I just wanted to say, and lastly, that Cornerstone has a very strong track record. Reputation means.
I'm going to cut you off there. You're over 5 minutes. We've heard a lot about Cornerstone as a developer.
Okay.
Thank you.
I support the project. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Paul Wick, and on deck, Carl Halverson.
Hi, I'm Paul Wick. I live at 41396 Dryden Road in the Republic of Brackendale. I'm a recovering mountain biker and serial dog walker along with my wife. I come tonight with sort of three hats on. One is a resident of Brackendale, one is as the acting administrator for the Squamish Valley, and one is the department head for education, employment, and training for the Squamish Nation. For myself personally, for our family, our daughter is quite young right now. Well, to me, she's young. She's 19. She's planning her future, and it's very saddening that what's not involved in her future is consideration of living in Squamish because they can't afford to live here. That's a big concern, so that touches on that. The other issue is safety. I've worked in the schools. My wife currently works at Don Ross Middle School. It'd be very nice to have better protection, long-term protection for that area. In terms of my role as the Squamish Valley Administrator, I would very much appreciate, in my role, whoever fulfills it in the future, has a little more peace of mind that whenever there's a big rainstorm, particularly in August, particularly within the Cheakamus River and the Chikai Rivers, that they're not waiting for the phone to ring for someone to say a debris torrent has come down. If we had small reminders of what that is and what it could look like, it would be much more reassuring to know that there is a plan in place moving forward. In terms of my new role as in education and the department head for employment and training, it really is exciting to have an opportunity for economic advantages for the Squamish Nation community and the Squamish district community as a whole. These are important. We need the plan. This is a long-term project which will help that. And in my role, I've also been able to hear a lot of discussion about truth and reconciliation, and there's been a lot of good movement towards that area, but one understanding, and as outlined in the principles, is that inclusion and economic development is a part of truth and reconciliation, and I think that's something you need to consider in your review of this project. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Carl Halverson, on deck, Ian Davis. Please state your name and your street address if you represent yourself, a business, or an organization.
My name is Carl Halverson. I live at 1102 Laramie Road. You already have my written submission, so I didn't want to go over that same ground. Just a few comments. I think first, as an empathic note to all the speakers who have spoken about affordable housing. In 1980, Leon and I purchased a small lot in Brackendale and built our own home. She had a job and I was a carpenter, and we scratched everything that we could together to buy that house, and we paid $16,000 for our lot. In the course of the construction of our house, the price of that lot went up to $63,000 beside us. So I think it's critically important that while you speak about affordable housing, it's also important that the housing is maintained as being affordable. I think other speakers have spoken about how they're going to be very desirable, and I think that's going to drive the prices up really quickly. When the assessed value of my house doubled last year, I don't know that I could afford to buy the house that I live in now or the house that we were able to build in Brackendale now. So really, it is critically important that, yes, there be affordable housing, but it is maintained as affordable housing for the second person and the third person in the market, and that those lots prices are maintained at a affordable level. The other comment is I worked for 33 years for School District 44, and part of that capacity was as the representative of the Diking Authority in Paradise Valley for the outdoor school. And so I have experience with flood protection. I was on the Cheakamus Water Use Planning Committee, which also spoke to flood protection and the impacts of the barrier and what a failure of the barrier would mean and how that would be a catastrophic event. And that relates directly to the construction of this debris catchment basin. I think it is more a catchment basin than a barrier itself. It's not going to stop everything coming down. It's going to catch the debris. And I think it's critically important that we compare this catchment basin to what happened at Garibaldi. The provincial government, in their wisdom, decided that there was a great risk from the barrier collapsing. And in order to mitigate that, they took all the people out of Garibaldi. They eliminated that small community. And yet, what was going to happen at Garibaldi was eventually going to come down to Paradise Valley. So my point is that whatever happens on Garibaldi is going to hit that catchment basin, and the first thing it's going to hit is the highway. If the basin wasn't there, it's going to hit that highway. So I would suggest that we have not a toll, but a protection fee for Whistler on that highway. Just a notion, because if you're looking to say you're going to charge every 1,200 residents in this proposed development a fee to protect themselves, well, let's look at who's at risk. Who's at risk is everybody downstream on the Cheakamus, and that includes IR11, that includes Squamish, because eventually that flow is going to hit the confluence, eventually it's going to block up the Cheakamus, eventually it'll block up the Squamish, and eventually it'll come down to Roost, like everything else that goes downhill. So my suggestion really is that you take a second look to the provincial government, to Whistler, because if an event happens, we say it is going to happen, that we look at all of the assets that are protected, that are potentially going to be protected by that berm, and say, pony up. And whether that's a $5 a vehicle a day, which is 10,000 vehicles a day, or 10,000 a day, for Whistler, that's a small fee. It really is insignificant. In closing, I am a great fan of densification of housing in order to be affordable. I'm a great fan of densification of housing in order to decrease our footprint on the planet, and I'm not a really big fan of migrating out into the forest to produce single-family housing lots. Thank you.
Ian Davis, and up on deck is Aidan Davis.
Ian Davis, number 6, 1261 Main Street in Squamish. I guess I have a couple of points. You asked us to stick to the development. On the development, I think the debris barrier is understated, its value. If we think that an event that impacts Brackendale won't impact the rest of Squamish, we're just naive on that fact. All of us that have businesses, I'm one of them, I speak with the hat of both personal and with my business. We have employees that live in that area, we have employees that have kids in that area, and if those employees can't come to work, if they have to stay home and look after kids and so on, it's going to impact every single business in our community. It won't just be restricted to our First Nations friends and their reserves and the Brackendale folks. It's going to be all of us, and it'll be a disaster. So the barrier is a no-brainer. It's got to happen sooner than later. If this is the best way to get there efficiently, that should be a reason itself to do it. Now, I am going to speak about this developer, but I'll keep it very short. I have worked with Michael Hutchison a great long time now, and what I can say about him is he's got a pedigree of social responsibility as a developer. He was doing projects when the economy was in the tank just to keep crews going, get them through the tough times. There wasn't money in those developments when he was doing them. And so he's alive to social issues. I can attest to the fact that he's helped our firm grow by employing us. And I can attest to the fact that he not only employs all local trades wherever he can, but also all the local professionals, architects, accountants, lawyers, and the like, surveyors, and so on. Thank you.
Thank you. Aidan Davis, and on deck, Gabrielle Aldenhall.
Hey, I'm Aidan Davis, 1261 Main Street. I represent myself. A lot of the positive things I want to say tonight have already been said, so I'll keep it pretty short, with just being that being a young person in Squamish, there's not a whole lot of accessibility to property ownership anymore. So a product like this with the smaller lots is bringing that to my doorstep. Thanks.
Thank you. Gabrielle Aldenhall, on deck, Guy
Garath has actually had to leave, Patty.
Okay.
And Mrs. Heinzman.
Thank you. On deck is Graham Schultz.
Gabriel Aldenhull, 14746 Squamish Valley Road. I have been in Squamish since 2007, and my association is with the Cedar Valley Waldorf School. As a member of the school staff, I have had an opportunity to work very closely with the families in the school and see a lot of the activity with the families. And over the years, as Squamish has boomed and busted and now come to this current housing crisis, seeing many of the families, some of our most vulnerable ones, being subject to sudden increases in housing, a lot of housing insecurity, and how that impacts young children has really hit close to home. Also, a number of families who have been long-term supporters, not only of the school, but of the whole community. These are people you want to see staying in Squamish and living here, being forced to move, some of whom grew up in this community. I'm sure you've heard all of that. And then also likewise, as we have a vision for growing the school, for seeing it be able to offer its education farther forward, and the lack of affordable housing has really impacted us, especially in the last couple of years, with numbers of families contacting the school, hoping to come and move here, taking school tours, and then saying, we can't do it. We're not able to afford the housing in this point. And of course, as a resident of Squamish Valley Road and all of that, knowing that my neighbors and other people are at risk. And then also just speaking for my own corridor, being a very narrow corridor, which would be very much blocked off in the event of that, and just the risk it poses to my own personal community. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Graham Schultz, on deck, Matt Parker. Please state your name, your address, and if you represent yourself, a business or an organization.
Thank you. Graham Schultz. I'm at 2154 Parkway Crescent. I'm representing myself and the company I work for, which is ISL Engineering. I've moved to Squamish just shy of 15 years ago, and I'm very proud of the fact that I opened a business at that time, and I've been continuing to grow that business since that time. As I look forward and as I continue to grow, I'm going to reiterate what has already been said here, and the challenges I'm finding to bring young professionals into this community are very real. So I find that in my day-to-day business. I've looked over the plans, and what I really like about this, other than certainly the affordability of it, has to do with what Councillor Heinzman brought up at the chamber luncheon there earlier, and that has to do with creating a community that is walkable and that is connected by trails. It is fantastic, the job that's been done on this master plan with the trail connectivity that's done. The fact that we are maintaining the Ray Peters Trail is amazing. And the active transportation work that the district is currently pursuing, it creates a corridor directly from this community all the way to the downtown. And the fact that we have a hub reducing urban sprawl, we have a community for young families with the school right there, small commercial hub as well. I see this as for young families growing up there, very attractive, lots of park space and easy access to the trails beyond which Squamish value. I'm also very keen on the debris as well. I have 2 young boys, and they will be in school in Brackendale in the years to come here. And the fact that those boys will be safe is very important to me and dear to my heart. I'm a strong supporter of this development and how it is laid out in its density, its use, and its trails. And I encourage council to support this development. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm the mayor now, Graham, not Councilor Beckles. Matt Parker, on deck, Rick Bowerman.
Hello, Matt Parker. I'm at 114 Wilson Crescent. I represent the Squamish Trail Society. Squamish Trail Society appreciates the consideration towards trails, which is evident in the plan displayed. The use of continuous green corridors to preserve a natural trail-like setting is important to us. We hope the consideration to trail extends up to the debris flow area, where I think there'll be a number of trails impacted during its construction. If a development like this does continue, we would like to see the trail continuity through the corridor trail connect to this community. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Rick Bowerman, and on deck, Joanne Lawrence. Please state your name, street address if you represent yourself, a business, or an organization.
Rick Bowerman, I represent a business, Bowerman's Cabinetry, 41541 Cottonwood Road, Brackendale. Pretty much everything that I wanted to say on a personal level has been said, so I'm just going to leave it at that. It's just on a business level. As my business continues to grow, we've got 14 journeyman cabinet makers on staff now. My challenge isn't finding work anymore. My challenge is keeping staff. So I see this as a great option for some of my younger guys to get into the market. On a developer side, I would just like to offer my support to the developer. With all the growth that we've seen in the past few years in town, this company is the only local company that has stepped forward and provided work for both myself and my employees. Thank you.
Thank you. Joanne Lawrence. Okay. Next up is Chris Rommel, and on deck is Michael McGillian. You know the routine.
Chris Rommel, 1001 J Crescent. Back when Amble Path was being built, we were a big part of the construction there, and we saw firsthand of what the combination of commercial, multifamily, and single lots, the success of that, and how it created a very tight-knit community down there. Not only did it create a jumping block for people from first-time homes to move up to bigger subdivisions like Crumpet Woods or Thunderbird Creek or what have you, it also spurred a lot of small businesses in the sense that there was a lot of young guys building their own places in Crumpet Woods other than bigger builders. And all of those guys are now licensed builders in town. So, you know, from back in 2007 to 2017 now, I would estimate there's probably 15 single-family builders that are running successful businesses from their stepping stone or their starting point in Amble Path. So I'm in huge support of this project. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Michael McGillian, and on deck is Jeff Cook.
Hi, my name is Michael McGillian, and I live at 38580 Sky Pilot Drive. And being 40th in line, it's all been said before, but just like to state that the developer did a very good job in Crumpet Woods to reinstate the mountain bike trails. I feel that we do need the barrier in Squamish, and I don't think the district of Squamish is going to build the barrier without some help from the developer. And the cost to repair the barrier would be far less than an event without the barrier being there. And I'm in support of this project. Thank you.
Thank you. Jeff Cook, on deck is Ray Hicks. Jeff here? Jeff left. Ray Hicks. On deck is Darcy Raymer.
Hi there, I'm Ray Hicks. I live at 41332 Tantalus Road. And like Mike said before me, my thunder's been stolen, but I'll make a couple of quick points. I represent the management team at Rona Squamish. Over the last 2 years, our sales have grown 70%. We now employ 53 employees. We've worked hard to build a strong team. There are many large developers in the city building multifamily units. These city developers often bring their city suppliers and trades from the city. It is developments like this that will keep our staff and local trades working in the years to come. The demand for single-family lots is very high with little supply. Hopefully, with increased supply, the prices may become more obtainable for first-time home buyers, which would be great for my children also. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Darcy Raymer, and on deck is Jason, oh, no, we just did that, sorry. Jason Woods and then Rachel Shepherd. Welcome.
Good evening. My name is Darcy Reimer. I live with my family at 40137 Kingswood Road. I'm the lead pastor of the River Church, also the chair of Community Christmas Care. But one of the most significant things that we do in the community is partner with our First Nations friends and neighbors. We put on a Christmas dinner at Totem Hall for the less fortunate, something we've been doing for 7 years now. And there are many aspects of this development that really excite me, but the foremost thing is the partnerships that are being made in this way. So I support developing healthy partnerships with First Nations, and this, as I said, excites me immensely. Indeed, we're all in the same canoe. I also support affordable housing. The other significant thing that we've been passionate about this winter is helping young men find affordable housing. In fact, one point this winter we had 2 vans converted for these young guys to live in, and we had extension cords running out from our house so that these guys could stay warm. We had another young fella who wasn't staying warm in his van, living in our crawl space. So I see there is a huge need for affordable housing in this community. My wife and I and our family chose to move to Squamish about 12 years ago, and we were one of the first families that moved to Amble Path. In fact, we raised our family there, loved our home, but we burst at the seams with 4 kids. And if it wasn't for the affordable housing Amble Path provided, we wouldn't know the luxury of owning our own home in Brackendale today. So I'm excited to see the possibility of having a large development like this in Brackendale, providing a debris barrier that we've heard about tonight, as well as affordable housing for many. And for this reason, I speak in favor of this development. Thank you.
Thank you. Jason Wood, and then Rachel Shepherd is on deck.
Hi, Jason Wood, 38286 Vista Crescent. I'm here to represent myself and my company, Diamond Head Development. One of the best parts about being a developer in this community is when you come up with a deal where everybody wins. It's obvious in this deal, in this development, what that is, and that's putting a barrier in place for the community of Squamish to protect the people of Squamish, both the district and the nation. We don't have that right now, and I trust all the people in the room can figure out the right solution to make that happen for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Rachel Shepherd, on deck, Armin Purford.
Rachel Shepherd, 42069 Government Road, and I'm speaking on behalf of myself. I sent you a PowerPoint and that's some written comments, so I won't go through all that in detail again. Hopefully you've had a chance to see those. But I just wanted to highlight a couple of things. I walk on the trails in that area and all around the Chi-Kai-Fan. I do that most days for the past 27, 8 years. And I certainly have some concerns about the loss of habitat that the project will entail, as well as incremental loss of habitat. And actually, just to backtrack a little bit, we've heard a lot about the need for affordable housing in our community, and that's certainly a huge problem that needs to be addressed. We've also heard about the need to protect existing development in Brackendale, and that's obviously something that also needs to be addressed. And I think we also need to look at the most appropriate uses for the high hazard areas on the Chikai Fan. But I think we need to tease those three aspects apart and not necessarily put them all in one basket and say that if we have one, we have to have the other. So going back to, I'm concerned about incremental loss of habitat on the Chikai Fan. I think if we have a comprehensive catchment basin up top, we're not only going to see changes in the immediate development area, but there's going to be increasing pressure to develop the entire Chikai Fan with potential loss of the forested and trail areas there. I have concerns for my own property about drainage. I sent a map along with my comments. I've only flooded once in a high rainflow event from storm sewer. So where I live, there's a ditch behind my house, and there are certain portions of the immediate area that are ditched, and certain portions that flow into storm drains. And the storm drains go under Government Road and end up in a ditch which has no exit right behind the houses across from Brackendale Elementary School on Government Road. And if we look at storm draining that entire development of 1,200 houses, taking away the trees, taking away the natural sponge, paving it, building houses, where is all that water going to go? And I know that staff have identified that will be looked at the subdivision part of the project, but I think just given the extent of the development, that the feasibility of that really needs to be looked at before we go ahead and approve it. I'm concerned about unnecessary development of a greenfield site. We have a number of areas within Squamish that are already zoned for residential development. And I don't think that at this point we need to be redesignating and rezoning a greenfield area for more housing. It doesn't meet our growth strategy. It doesn't meet our district policies. And staff have highlighted a number of the policies that are supported by this project, but they did not highlight some of the ones that this project is in contravention of. I think a real kicker for me is the uncertainties around the upper catchment basin. The Kerr-Woodley-Dell report actually identified two mitigation options, two best options for mitigation on the fan, and those were the mid-fan berm and the upper catchment basin. And they used a matrix to evaluate those, and the mid-fan berm actually scored better than the catchment basin in their matrix. And I'd just be interested to know from staff why that potential mitigation option has been discounted.
Maybe finish your comments and then we'll get staff to respond.
Okay, thank you. The Kerr-Woodley-Dell report certainly suggested working with the developer to look at the implications of the upper catchment basin, given that there were so many unresolved questions and concerns, and those included environmental permitting, engineering, how the structure will function, whether it will function as intended during a large-scale event, long-term maintenance, and post-recovery costs and responsibilities. And as far as I know, there has not been any further work done on that to look at what the implications are of all those unresolved concerns. And it just seems really premature, if not downright irresponsible, to go ahead and approve this project without more information. I totally understand that the developer doesn't want to put money into further investigation without some assurance that the project will proceed. However, I think it's council's responsibility to take care of our interests as a community and not to take on undue risk of approving the project without fully understanding the implications of putting in place such a large debris flow structure, and whether this is the most appropriate mitigation option for our community.
I'll ask you to wrap up right now. There will be an opportunity after to speak further, but your 5 minutes are up.
Wow, 5 minutes already.
Okay.
Okay,
Got a few more minutes. We haven't had a lot of opposition, so I'm happy to allow
Okay.
you to go a little bit longer.
I find it unbelievable that we would agree there's an unacceptable debris flow hazard to, or risk to existing development. Then we would purposely build in a higher hazard zone that's going to be protected by a structure that is significant on a world scale, and that's from the engineering firm, Kerwood Liddell, and that's going to be protected by a structure that is significant on a world scale and may not perform as intended. They know that this structure would be among the largest of this type in the world, and that the technology may not be considered as tested and proven for coarse debris flows such as may occur in the Chikai River. And the district should keep in mind that a very large debris barrier on the Chikai Fan might not perform as intended. So I just think it's premature to approve this development with so many unanswered questions. The financial, social, environmental, and liability risks that we could incur as a community. Thank you.
Thank you. Armin Herford, and on deck is Glenn Campbell. Please state your name and street address, and if you represent yourself, a business or an organization.
Hello, my name is Armin Herford. I'm at 41337 Meadow Avenue. I suppose I represent myself, and I also own Republic Bicycles in Brackendale. Little background before I get into it. I'm third generation Squamish. I'm a founding member of SORCA, which is 25 years old this year. So and obviously as owner of Republic Bicycles for the last 10 years, I've got a vested interest in not just the community of Squamish as a whole, but very much in Brackendale, and also what happens out in the forest around that. Matt touched on it earlier with the connectivity of the trails. I really like a lot of things about this. The Brackendale Park, very excited to see that. I like the way the trails connect through into the new development. I like the idea of being protected from the debris flow. I've spent a lot of time on the Chikai River. One of my favorite little sneaky bike routes is to hike across it and up to Cat Lake. There's opportunity for a fifth lake to be added to our Four Lakes Trail system with BC Parks. There's all sorts of great potential here, and I want to make sure that we capitalize on the potential of this. This development as a whole is promising us this debris protection, but the scale of the construction up there is massive. Like the speaker just before me mentioned, on a world scale. And any dam I've ever seen, I'm not an expert in it, has always been protected and restricted as far as the flow of the public access. Currently in that area, right where this is going to go, there are the first mountain bike trail built in Squamish is Dead End Loop. Way down the bottom there's old railway grade that's been used for the Bob McIntosh Memorial Loop is right in there. Made in the Shades right in there. All these trails, and there's a lot. Now this developer is also, this package has been proposed as, on the first leading part of the website, is a ride-in, ride-out community. Now we're talking about the areas that are directly touching it, and I think they've done a good job on site. I really want to make sure we use this opportunity to gain a connector up into that area at Cat Lake for hiking, cycling, however, all of us to get through that way, and also make sure we don't lose the nature of what we're trying to sell everybody here, and what everybody's trying to buy is into our outdoor recreation capital. So my specific ask would be that in our community funds, and we saw a lot of great things they're going to do for the community, and all the funds are going to go into that there be funds specifically earmarked to, at the very least, replace the trails that are lost building this barrier. And I know in the relation of us all being protected, I grew up in Brackendale. My dad was the president of Flying Club for I don't know how many years. I've heard so much about the Chikai Fan and the challenges there, and I think this is great. I just don't want to see the other form of erosion is eroding away at our trail network without a specific ask to develop that further and to replace the losses there, so we can all continue to recreate here. So that's my one concern. I am very happy to see the promise of affordable housing, and I heard the members of the Squamish Nation speak passionately about that as well, so I'm confident that that's going to get done through this. And I know the projects on this scale are huge and complex and hard to put together. So we currently have 13 staff in our store, and I am having retention problems. We're currently recruiting, and it's hard. People call from all over, and we're doing Skype interviews. One of the first questions, have you looked at housing here? Are you prepared to make that leap? And are you ready for this? Because this is a different thing than wherever it is that you're coming from. We employ people from all over the world, 4 from the UK, got a young guy from Belgium working for us. Anyways, from all over the world, and it's a huge challenge. So I trust that we can get that done. I like the site. I like the Brackendale, the park is amazing. And my concerns would be the trails that are a huge asset. We want to make sure that we use this as a great opportunity for, everybody here knows that for a very, very, very small amount of money, we can get great things done to make the trail connectivity even better and more marketable for everybody developing. And also that is a big part of why we're all here. So all in all, I'm in support, but I would really like to see, my concern up in that area is this thing is huge, and I don't want to have restricted access there. There's a huge number of trails that are going to have to be affected during construction and while it's up and running. And I would like to second or third or fourth the opinion of worrying about how to repair this thing if it has an event 2 years after it was built. If that thing comes down, if it has a big event now, we're in trouble. So all in all, a supporter, but please make sure that we're gaining on all the fronts that make this a good place to be. Thank you very much.
Glenn Campbell and Cynthia Lewis is on deck.
Hello, my name is Glenn Campbell. I live at 41483 Brennan Road, or commonly known as Jimmy Slough, the south end, or the south end of Judd Slough. I'd like to say it's pretty phenomenal how much more depth and breadth of information that we've received. I thank you for that, and I'd also like to thank the Squamish Nation for sharing the ability for us to live in a hardwired for adventure lifestyle. It's really great that you've included the BFI, the Brackendale Farmers Institute Walking Park, within this project. We know that regardless of what happens, that particular piece of land is very important to the district of Squamish. I do have a big question, though. The new thing that I heard tonight was the local service area tax. And so I quickly did some research while we were sitting here, and I have questions like this. Could you please define the boundaries of the local service area tax? We've heard many speakers tonight say that the barrier will protect all of Squamish. It will definitely protect this development, but how and when do you determine the boundaries of the local service area tax? The other point that the BC government website brings up is approval of the property owners for this local service tax to be implemented. How are you planning to do that? We saw some numbers tonight. What we didn't see was what the local service area tax would actually be. When do we see those numbers? And I'm really curious about what will the process for approval of the local service area tax be. The BC government suggests that it's referendum. It suggests that it's for the people that the expenditure will service. It suggests that the district may have to take out a loan and have the local service area tax pay off that loan. I think those are very big questions that I'm curious if staff has looked into or if council has looked into. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Cynthia Lewis? And staff will address some of the specific questions or things that were, comments that weren't clear, so we will get to that. Cynthia here, I don't see it. Rick King? Rick King? Nope. Richard Zimmer? Nope. Baby Lewis? Wendy Linton? This might go faster than we thought. Richard Baker? On deck is Randall Lewis.
Richard Baker, West Squamish Chief and Council, ancestral name Kaslas, meaning one who's there for the people, almost like the position we're all in. As I stated, I'm on Chief and Council, ancestral name, one who's there for the people. That's a high-ranking name that came from Kinkham, right, from Frank Nelson Sr., going back a couple hundred years, that name carries. But anyway, I just want to thank everybody for being here, voicing your concerns, saying your opinions, asking questions, some that can't be answered right now. But we're at the state that we're working with our colleagues here, our friends, our neighbors, looking out for the best interests of all people. We never chose to be in these sites, but yet we live there and we strive and we try to live. We lost many habitat. We lost our resources in timber, in water, in fish, in hunting, and all the major things that happen in our corridor. My corridor is the whole territory of Squamish Nation. That's who I represent. I represent 4,500 people, 4,400 that are on my shoulders and weight. I feel it, but I humbly come to support this as I do with you, and we work together. We've met many, many times. I got a lot of respect for all of you, but most of all, I want to thank the people that are here to voice their concerns. We are trying to get to that state in our lives, in our community, to where we can take on what we're learning here as we go. It's a hard thing to get into, and we're trying to get there slowly but surely, because we need to take care of our people. Our resources, we lost a lot of resources. What we lived on, what we maintained, we're caretakers of the land, and we still are. But we come here respectfully, and working with you, and we will continue that. We're not hiding nothing. We're just working together and carrying on what we're supposed to do. So I thank you for giving all the people their time, especially our people and the elders that come out to support us. We got a lot of opposition that we stand door to door they come to our houses. We have to answer tough questions, and sometimes we can't give them answers. But we're working together with you, Mayor, Council, and your staff, your team. So I just want to say, Heitska, thank you. And I thank the people for being patient. It's a tough road we're going down it, but we're going to get there slowly but surely together. My auntie and my uncle, their elders are here to support us. That's what we want to support from everybody. Thank you.
Randall Lewis, on deck is Dustin Winstanski, and that's the last name I have on my list. So if you do want to speak at this public hearing, just put your hand up and I'll acknowledge you. Thank you.
Thank you. Doc, my ancestral name comes from my great-great-grandmother, given to my father as a young man. It comes from Point. I'm a Chuck in Upper Squamish. As Cockleton Siam, late mother, who was 99 years old at the time, explained to me that she hadn't heard that word in 70 years.
Could you just state your address, please?
966 Axon Road, Brackendale, Waywacom, IR 14. So she informed me that it means just high spirit of the land of the Upper Squamish. But I come from a middle of 14 brothers and sisters. We grew up in Chikai-Chackamish. I remember as a young boy, we were the first house to build up there. The bed in our rooms used to literally shake from the rocks and boulders coming down the Chikai River. My father is the youngest of 19 brothers and sisters, Bukwelam. He was born 1926. He had 19 brothers and sisters. His oldest brother was Louis Lewis, and he was born 1900. And we have a strong history and knowledge and background. And to me, this area. Talk about impacts. The first old growth that was harvested from this territory, I listened to elders of the day, Chief Alvy Andrews, Cockleton, Siem's mother, 99 years old, and other elders that were 100 years old telling me what this land used to be before the Holaytons arrived and clear-cut our valleys with the streams and the fish. And there used to be 6 to 7 miles long of birds and 3 miles thick. The sun was literally blocked out from these species that used to frequent these lands that are gone now. So talk about impacts. Talk about the old growth that used to be here before it was harvested out. With that in mind, it's the first time that in our existence since the fur trade, gold rush and resource extractions of forestry in our territory. To me, it's the first time that a proponent has stepped up and harmonized efforts to do something with us as a Squamish Nation. Our first harmonization was the fur trade in our territory. But why? Because we knew the land, we knew the areas. I remember reading, when I was in grade 7, an article by Rose Tatlow that her grandfather, when he was up here in the Upper Squamish as a white settler, that if it wasn't for the Squamish Indians, their family would not have survived, because they were taught medicinal plants, when to harvest, where to harvest, and how to mix medicinal plants for the sickness. And Rose Tatlow's grandfather, she wrote in an article, I remember reading as a young boy in grade 7, that for the white settlers who did not learn our language and our ways, they perished or just left because they could not survive. But the white settlers who learned our language, our customs, and our values, that for whatever you harvest, you return threefold. You don't take. You don't do that against the great spirit of our lands. So we sustained ourselves for thousands of years being here. So with this development in the area and the protections it's doing, as a proponent who stepped up and made some sincere efforts to include us as a First Nation, but also creating the political will of this district, the political will of our Chief and Council, and the constituents of this municipality coming together and building solutions. Without the berm, we're at risk. With the berm, the risk is lessened. It's not rocket science. But certainly when you look at the opportunities that it brings with regards to the economy of building this, but also the economy when the commercial developments are built, that, there's going to be employment opportunities, building it and employment opportunities for our local community, and when they're occupying those commercial developments. My late father used to catch a cab from Chikai to Squamish, $40 one-way trip. $80 for a cab ride to go from Chikai to Squamish and back, $80. So I told my dad, call me when you need a ride to Squamish. I'll come pick you up and give you a ride. So if these amenities and such that are going to be built in this here in Brackendale, was be much closer for our community in Chikai. But what is the alternative? The alternative with regards to that area as it's zoned right now in the official community plan is restricted industrial. What's the alternative? Don't get me wrong, I don't have anything against forestry. My late father owned a logging company. He trained me to be a faller. I'm a helicopter logger faller. That's what I was trained as. I worked in the forestry industry in my young life before I went to post-secondary. But that area is restricted industrial. What does that mean? That means it's either going to be a log sort or a sawmill or waste management for a landfill and or recycling. That's what a zone does right now. So what do people want to see? That type of activity, or they want to see an activity that's going to be harmonizing our efforts and building solid solutions of social housing, but also building some realities of, we have a strong essence of a political will to work together here. Yes, we have to deal with federal governments, provincial governments for the berm, but we can do that as a collective collaborative interest as a community. I'd like to thank you for your time. Thank you for all the work you've done on this project to date, and thank you for our Squamish Nation elders that are here. And Bob Baker, he's one of our elders here. Our house burnt down in Chikai. And all of a sudden, he didn't remember saying this, but he told my dad, gee, you guys can come stay at my house. And Bob Baker and him woke up and they found a bunch of us there. And but there wasn't housing, but we have a solution for housing now. That's the whole point. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our last speaker on my list is Dustin Winstanski, and please let me know if you'd like to speak at this public hearing. It's a little hard for me to see, but if I don't acknowledge you, scream.
All right. Dustin Winstanley, and my address is 1018 Condor Place. I I'm just here in support of the development as a whole. I'm that young builder Chris talked about that came and got a start in Amblepath, a similar sort of idea. I went on to frame several homes there, side several homes there, start our company there, build a home for my family there, which we lived for 4 years and enjoyed that before moving on to other projects. But I see this as a similar opportunity for lots of local people, for the local guys that live and work here and are full-time employees for our company. Also, I mean, jobs for myself, my family, and opportunities for lots of people in this community to get a start here in Squamish and to just enjoy what we get to partake in here in town.
Thank you very much. Deborah Baker, and is there anyone else who would like to speak? Just put your hand up and let me know. Thank you.
Deborah Baker, Squamish Nation, member of Chief and Council, 250 One Oak Road, Capilano Reserve in West Van. I'll just keep my comments brief. I really want to thank everyone that's come out tonight to support the development and those who also had concerns that did not support the development. I like this open and transparent process that is established here. And prior to becoming a council member, I worked with economic development, community economic development. So to hear so many entrepreneurs in this area really, it really made me feel good about this community, this town, this district of Squamish, this part of the Squamish Nation territory. I really believe that the foundation of entrepreneurism helps build all communities, not only in the Squamish area, but across Canada and around the world. What I see in this development is an opportunity for so many, not only young families, but as one speaker mentioned, those who are downsizing, or those who choose to live in a tiny home. The development opportunity here is a win-win, which was also mentioned, to so many diverse families or even individual single people. And I just see the opportunities, the synergy that is going to help with the growth of the Squamish area. I really want to acknowledge my brother who spoke before me, Councillor Richard Baker, and talking about over the years, as well as some of our elders and our relatives who spoke about living here for many, many generations and what's happened and impacted the area, which is now called the District of Squamish. So we have seen those changes and impacts. But with this development, I think, is going to be a catalyst for change in so many areas in regards to our partnerships, in regards to working with the municipality and the regional district and the province. At the end of the day, I support the project, and I look forward to hearing what the mayor and council have to decide upon, and thank you for the time. Thank you to the staff. Thank you to everyone that's come out tonight on relations.
Thank you. Mo Freitag, and then I'll see someone over here, and let me know if you would like to speak to this public hearing.
Mo Freitag, 642 Lower Crescent, Britannia Beach, British Columbia. I got not so much necessarily to say, I'm in support of the project. The economics of it is up to the developer, and I'm sure he'll do fine by the looks of things. But more out of curiosity for the staff, we did a similar project in Britannia Beach a few years ago, and with the support of Squamish Council, we were successful in that. And one of the arguments we made in support of receiving the funds from the provincial government to do that work down there was, of course, to protect the assets, but not only the assets, and I think Carl hit the nail on the head for me, not just the assets of the developer, but the assets of the province. I do believe that it's their highway, and I do believe that CN has an asset there called the railway, and I do believe that there are other assets that hold significant value. And I'm actually quite surprised after tonight to hear that developers ponying up the significant contribution to build this, and that you're going to have a small service area going to try to service this. I agree with Councillor Elliott's comments on it's likely not economically viable for that service area to service this in an event. But I just was curious as to how you came up with the formula, because at the end of the day, if you don't have the debris flow hazard abatement there, EMBC pays, but everybody pays, like all the taxpayers pay, because EMBC is funded by everybody. So in this situation now, you're shouldering it on the developer and a small tax area. But regardless of that, if that fails and you don't have enough money, and I think I agree, you don't have enough money to deal with it in the short term, then somebody else has to pay for it, and that's the taxpayer again. So I'm just curious as to how you came up with that formula, how it's shouldered by this small service area, and why it's not shouldered by a larger group of organizations. First and foremost, I 100% agree that Squamish Nation should be protected. It wasn't their choice to go to those lands. We know how Indian reserves were formed, and for my family, we didn't get one. We were just chased off the land carte blanche. But fortunate for them, they have somewhere to be, but we should be protecting them. There's no doubt about that, and I commend the developer for even coming up with a formula that he could figure he could do this. But I'm just curious to see how you came up with that, and where CN and the Ministry of Highways and all these other agencies and organizations that have assets that somebody's going to protect for them aren't at the table helping pay the lion's share of the bill, or some share of the bill, including Whistler, because Whistler's done those models. We had the slide at Chikai. We had the slide at Porto. The Chamber of Commerce in Whistler's done all those numbers. They've modeled all those numbers, thousands and millions of dollars this province lost in tax dollars, and hotel tax revenue, and all those things. We've seen that already. So I'm just curious to see how you came up with this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. There's a hand over here. Please state your name and your street address, and if you represent yourself, a business or an organization, and then a hand over here as well.
My name is Chris Bosman. I'm a resident of Squamish at 38350 Eagle Boulevard, and I'm also the president of the Canadian Home Builders Association, Sea to Sky. Personally, I support this project, and the CHBA also supports this project. I think everything else has been said, so thank you for your time.
Thank you. Please state your name and your street address, and if you represent yourself, business or an organization.
My name is Julie Tennock, and I live at 40495 Highlands Way North. I am representing myself and my business, Wildside Landscape Design. I am in support of this project. Of course, there's many questions to be answered, but I support it for a few reasons that I see for the community aspect of it. I was one of the people when Amblepath went in that worked on that project, and I could see how the community came together in a minimalist environment like that with small lots, but lots of green space, and I think we need more of that in this town and other areas. So for the community reason, for the connectiveness of people, and for the trail systems that are going to be supported throughout that project. So full support. Thank you.
Thank you. That's the last of anyone I've seen. Just don't see any hands. I'll perhaps go to staff now. There were a few items brought up, and I'm wondering if maybe staff could answer some questions. I won't do it in any particular order other than my scribbles on here, and if I missed anything, please let me know. Wonder if we could have a comment about the boundary for the local service area tax, and how that may or may not be determined, and how that may or may not be accomplished, given the parameters that the province has set up for those systems.
Thank you. I will try to tackle that. So in terms of process, there's 3 ways to create a local service area. One is by referendum, one is by council proposal to create a service area, and one is by petition on behalf of the landowners. The service area has to be approved by council through a bylaw process, but before council approves it, it has to either do the referendum or get petitioned or proposed and get accepted, the service and the tax. And then finally, the service area bylaw has to be approved by the province. So the minister also has to approve it. So there's many or three different authorities, I guess, involved in the process. The property owners, either in all the three scenarios, have to be supportive. In this case, if this is just the development site, there's really one property owner to start with. The service area would have to get created before this development takes off, and it would be in every interest of the developer to agree with the tax area, if that is the funding mechanism. The numbers in terms of the tax rate, we don't know the potential tax rate at this time because the detailed design hasn't been done. And so we don't have, at this point, we only have a conceptual estimate for what the barrier would cost. And then as a result, only a conceptual understanding of what the potential funding, what the potential funds are needed to maintain the structure and to build the reserve in order to deal with large-scale events. I think those were the key points I've taken down.
There were also comments about what this structure protects and what allows, goes through the structure and what is held in the catchment basin. I'm wondering, Mr. Ralston can maybe articulate exactly a little bit more what the structure holds back and what it doesn't hold back and the impacts environmentally and or socially that might have.
Sure. So the district did a review of mitigation alternatives earlier in 2016. We looked at about 9 different options for mitigation, debris barriers, berms, catchment basins in various locations. The Upper Canyon Barrier, which is the concept mitigation that the developer is proceeding with, was identified as one of the preferred options. The big benefits of it are that it protects the largest area. The higher up the catchment that the mitigation goes, the larger area it does protect. Having said that, there is an opening in the barrier that would allow smaller events to pass through, so it wouldn't catch all of the debris. It's required to maintain a sediment supply down the river, to avoid downcutting of the river, to maintain natural processes, and also to allow for some level of cleaning, sort of a self-cleansing type of effect. One of the questions that came forward was, why did we proceed with the Upper Canyon Barrier when there was another option, which is the mid-fan berm, that was basically equal in terms of the scoring? And the recommendation was to proceed with this because of a couple of things. One is that it protects the largest area, and also another is that the fact that it's being proposed to be funded privately. So given that, is an opportunity for the district to have some mitigation in place without having to come up with capital funds, which is very significant for mitigation on this scale. The developer's qualified professional is here as well, so if there's technical questions, at this point we've been presented with conceptual design information. If there's anything that he would like to add that may be useful information as well.
I'm wondering, just to elaborate on that, how big an event could get through the structure currently, and would that still impact the Chikai-Cheakamus confluence?
My understanding is that that's a detail that needs to be worked out through the detailed design. We're just at a concept stage, and I think further work is required there.
Thank you. There was some talk about no net loss of trails, not just within the development, but up in and around where the berm is being proposed, and the connectivity from the north and the south, is that possible through the berm? From sort of Alice Lake area to Cat Lake?
That's a good question. I don't have an answer to that at this point. Again, it's been a lot of conceptual design information presented, and a lot of these details need to be worked out.
Perhaps the developer can help us out there.
Michael Hutchison, through you, Mayor. Yes, we could create connectivity across the top of the berm. We spoke to our engineers, BGC, and they said, yes, a bridge can go across the top of the gap. So you would be able to ride your mountain bike from one side to the other, the Chikai opening up the Cat Lake area. And we would consider that part of the design.
And maintenance of, no net loss of trails in and around where the berm is being proposed?
Yeah, that's correct. We would replace the trails like we have in other developments.
There was obviously a lot of talk about affordable housing and locals being able to buy first. Are there any covenants or proposals on how, if this is in fact part of the proposal?
There would be, the only restrictions on affordability would be for the actually purpose-built, non-market units. The rest of the development would be market housing. Now, the size of the lots will likely affect the price, and there's a lot of small to medium-sized lots. But they're not going to be restricted by the district in any way.
And there's no purpose-built rental proposed at this point other than the affordable housing community amending contribution?
That's right, yes.
I have more questions. Quite a few questions about bringing other people to the table to help pay for this structure should it either maintenance or for whatever reason an event happen and the district as the Dikening Authority couldn't absorb the costs or handle the magnitude of the problem. Just, I mean, on that note, and staff maybe can fill in the blanks here and certainly open to council commenting. There has been quite a bit of talk with the provincial government, and they've essentially said we have to, as the Dikening Authority, take it on if we're to approve it. And they aren't terribly concerned about their own infrastructure in terms of highways because they self-insure and they'll just simply rebuild the highway. And so they're so far zero traction from the province. Just wanted to make that clear for everyone in terms of sharing the burden on this. Doesn't mean should it move forward, we wouldn't continue to pursue that. But Council, are there any other questions that came up during the public hearing that may need clarification? Councillor Elliott?
A couple of people mentioned having the corridor trail connect all the way up to this neighborhood, and I can't remember if that's in the active transportation plan is a thought about how we would connect this to our existing active transportation routes north-south.
I don't have the alignment of the trail down pat, but I know someone that does.
I'll field that one.
My understanding is to run along the railway from the overpass up to depot is very tricky because the land that we have is, well, it's more water than land in many places. So at this point, we're routing along Dryden, and then we have to get back across the railway in some informal crossings, either to Honey Lane or to Dogwood, then to depot, and then you can get either to depot to Ross or depot to the highway in Ray Peters at the corner there. But using that, we do have the land, but the land's more water than dirt. So getting an easy, straightforward connection along the railway is going to be very difficult to do. So we're looking at options, I think, through the residential area at this point in time.
And just to elaborate on that, when the corridor trail was first planned, we looked at routes on the east side, the west side. It's very swampy. The highway right away isn't overly large in that area. We have a park that panhandles up the railway line, as Mr. Buxton was saying, and it's very swampy too, problematic. So it's always been a challenge, and currently, as Mr. Buxton said, it technically routes through the neighborhood.
The other thing I heard from people that spoke tonight was about including employment and training, and that might be a question for the proponent more than our staff about whether that's included. I think that was for Squamish Nation members. And also this idea of a locals first buying policy. I heard a couple people mention that was in place, but I haven't heard of that, or if there is even a way to promise that. So I don't know if the proponent wants to.
Locals First in Amblepath, we gave, I think it was 30 days, might have been 60 days, to people who had an address in Squamish on their driver's license. That's how we told. So Locals First. And it worked quite well. And I think many of the purchases were local, even after that period. And employment and training, we're committed to working with the Squamish Nation, with or without this development, to help train. I think what is unique about this development rather than others is that when you build a house or a set of townhomes, it lasts a year or 14 months or 16 months at the most. And that's not really enough time to train somebody. What you need is something that takes 4 or 5 years. An apprenticeship's 4 years, 5 years, you're a journeyman, and from there you can start your own business or you can operate independently. So one of the big benefits of a development of this size is sort of like cutting a slice of bread off the loaf each time. So every year you can train people year after year after year. And that's why, you know, looking at a development that take a build out of 20 years is very, very suitable for training. And our partnership has written into our partnership with the Squamish Nation that as a requirement.
Councillor Chappelle? Sorry, Councillor Chappelle?
Yeah, thanks. Just a simple question on the advisory lane. Is that the main road? Is that Ross Road, or is that where is the advisory lane? The shared car, pedestrian, and cycling?
Yes, the advisory lanes would be inside that, so it would be part of the Strata Road network. The Ross Road would have to be upgraded to a local collector standard and be a district road.
The sidewalks?
Sidewalks and bike lanes.
Thank you.
I'll go back out to the public just to see if there's anyone who would like to make any further comments on this at this public hearing. I'll ask for a second time. Is there anyone who'd like to make further comments at this public hearing? And I will ask for a third time. Is there anyone who would like to make further representations? There being no speakers, please note that once the public hearing has closed, council cannot receive any new information. So I ask that if any correspondence comes in, it just goes simply straight to staff. I'm going to now declare the hearing closed. Thank you very much. Council has heard a lot of comments and has received a number of correspondences and had a massive agenda to go through. So I don't suspect council is going to make a decision tonight. They're going to deliberate on this, and this will likely be back in front of us the first regular meeting in February. Thank you very much, everyone. Motion to terminate the meeting. Moved by Councillor Kent, seconded by